Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Become a Superman and become invincible. Chapter 21. The figure high in the sky stood silently for a long time. The sea of fire all over the mountains and plains below has been blown out by him. At this time, the sporadic firelight is as sparse as the starlight in the sky. However, Leon followed the principles of forest fire prevention and checked carefully again, extinguishing all remaining sparks one by one. Then he looked down at the base of the 10 Rings gang that had been razed to the ground at his feet, and looked around leisurely. However, in the eyes of the middle-aged reporter, those actions are like a righteous Superman, making sure that he has not spared any criminals. The 10 Commandments gang does all kinds of evil, now it's better. Superman is here, we have hope. Superman is here, we want peace. At this moment, the middle-aged man felt that the figure in the sky was as majestic as a god. His body trembled unconsciously, and there was the pleasure of revenge in his eyes, but more importantly, there was expectation and hope. It must be like this, he is here to help us. He is here to save us. He is a messenger sent by Allah. No, he is Allah in this world, the reincarnation of Allah. He was so excited that he cried with joy. His legs became weak and he knelt directly on the ground. He leaned over and cried bitterly. Everything is going to be okay. It's finally going to be over. Superman, by the way, Superman. I want to tell Superman that the 10 Rings gang still has many bases on this land. The middle-aged man thought of something. He climbed and rolled and pulled the tree trunk beside him to stand up, wanting to shout for Superman. However, when he looked up, the clothes as blue as the ocean and the cloak fluttering like blood were right in front of him. Superman. The middle-aged reporter was shocked. Superman stood in front of him at some point. Thank you for the compliment just now, but I am not God, I am just a person who sees injustice on the road. Superman smiled and said, "What's your name? You risked your life to shoot near a terrorist organization. You are brave and a hero worthy of admiration." No, no, no. I'm just an ordinary person, you are our hero. The middle-aged reporter was so excited by the praise that his face turned red. My name is Hafzola Abdullah, thank you for saving me just now. I. At such a close distance, he could finally see Superman's appearance clearly. Those deep black eyes are as charming as the graceful night. The face is carved with a knife and an axe, and every line is so tough and handsome. This is simply a perfect man. How could such a perfect person not be a god who came to the world to save all sentient beings? Abdullah can guarantee that if he were a girl, he would dream of this Superman every night in his life. No, even if he is not a girl, he will still dream about it. Don't be nervous, Abdullah, I'm looking for you because I hope you can do me a favor. Leon felt something strange in the reporter's eyes, which made his back tighten. He hurriedly expressed his intention. You should have just photographed what I did in the 10 Rings gang camp, right? Yes, that's right. Abdullah was a little flustered, and immediately held the camera in both hands and handed it out. Please forgive me for taking unauthorized pictures, please take back what's inside. That's not what I meant. Leon pushed the camera back. I want you to go back and release these videos in front of the media. Of course, in your own name. Just say that this is a picture you secretly captured at the risk of your own death, and tell other media for me, let all foreign troops in this land leave immediately and give up the invasion. Abdullah's eyes widened. Are you going to declare war on the United States? It's not a declaration of war, but a post-war declaration. Leon turned around, leaving a profile. He finally nodded to the reporter, lifted his feet off the ground, and flew into the clouds. Goodbye, I will remember you, a brave hero. On the spot, Abdullah stared blankly at the figure disappearing into the night sky, and unconsciously made a prayer gesture. Superman is above. He is simply the perfect Holy Spirit, the God of salvation. He has a pair of... Wait, I seem to have forgotten what he looks like. Jarvis, send all those battle scenes to Tony. On the other side, Leon had no idea how deep an impression he had left on the middle-aged reporter. He only thought about Tony. Also, if he hasn't gotten up yet, provide wake-up service. Okay, Master Leon, I will send the image data back to Los Angeles. Jarvis did as he was told. I believe Tony will like my gift. Leon determined the next target in the clouds. Before taking action, check the local time for me, Jarvis. Okay, It's 9:47 p.m. local time. Then work harder and try to finish all the 10 Rings gang bases before 11 o'clock, and then go to the Eagle base. Master Leone, are you going to take action against the American base? Do you need me to inform Mr. Stark in advance? No need to tell him. As a taxpayer, I refuse to let those rednecks above me do bad things with my money and correct the chaos. I think it is just and right. Besides, I'm going to build some reputation now, and when I stand up to destroy Hydra later, it will be more logical. You are so considerate. The other side of the ocean. Shield. Director, I think you need to take a look at this. The semi-bald middle-aged agent placed a tablet in front of his boss, and the always kind expression on his face turned very serious. And that boss, a bald, one-eyed black man, sits behind a white lacquered desk. After hearing the sound, he slowly turned his seat and turned around. He was looking at the scenery outside the window before, leaving only a cold back figure for his men who came in, looking mysterious and unpredictable. At this moment, the one-eyed black man known as the director nodded lightly with a cold expression. Well, Coulson, what's the news? The largest 10 Rings gang base in Afghanistan has been eliminated, Director Fury. Oh, who did it? Nick Fury glanced down casually, and his unpredictable expression suddenly collapsed. He suddenly stood up, eyes widened, and looked at the satellite picture played on the tablet computer. A man in cool and stylish clothes used a heat ray to easily eliminate the grenades in the sky. What the hell is this? Director, there's more behind. Coulson clicked on the screen to fast forward. Soon the progress bar was dragged to the second half. Nick Fury watched dully the scene of Leon resisting the Jericho missile and quelling the aftermath of the explosion without any damage. His mind was filled with exclamation marks and question marks. When was there such an awesome person on Earth again? Why didn't he know? Who is this? Have you found the results of your investigation? Nick Fury subconsciously wanted to take out the pager he used to contact Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is his friend, has the power to travel through the universe, and is now maintaining the peace of the universe in outer galaxies. When he encounters an unsolvable crisis, he only needs to press the pager in his hand to call Captain Marvel to come to the rescue. And the man in the video now gives him a sense of crisis that he desperately wants to press the pager. Coulson said with unprecedented seriousness at this time, "This is Superman." Director. Superman. Who is that? Nick Fury's eyes narrowed, and then, he was confused. Director, Superman is a superhero in DC Comics. He has super strength and super speed. Wait a minute, you said this is a character from a comic book. The kind of superhero who wears pajamas, covers his face, and saves the world. To be precise, Superman is not masked, Director. He has a biological force field that makes it impossible for people to remember or photograph his appearance. Coulson said. Nick Fury looked at the satellite image carefully. It is true that the facial details cannot be captured. You seem to be very familiar with him. I'm a fan of Superman, and of course, a fan of Captain America. Coulson said with excitement about his hobby. Then what do you think we should do with this Superman? Nick Fury crossed his arms and leaned on the back of his chair. It seems like he doesn't want anyone to discover his true identity. According to the plot in the comics, he stands on the side of justice and will stop unjust violence, so we may try to contact him, Coulson said. That's a caricature, Coulson. In reality, this one is just an imitator, and what he is doing is committing violence. This seems to be true. Superman in the comics doesn't know how to kill. He has a no-kill principle. Compared with Team America. Stop talking about your comics, Coulson. Nick Fury knocked on the table. Take Patton with you. Go to Afghanistan, and try to investigate the other party. Yes, Director. Coulson finished his report and walked out with the new mission. When he walked to the door, Nick Fury's arrangement came from behind him. Also, send me a set of comics related to Superman. At the same time, the same scene was also played out in the military. But Nick Fury knows more about supernatural powers than that. The military headquarters was in chaos. As a colonel in the Weapons Research and Development Department, Rhodes was the first to stand up and explain that the person in the video was a living person, not a humanoid individual weapon. The major of the missile force stood up and said that enemies that could not be damaged by Jericho missiles could only be as strong as nuclear bombs. The Navy captain said they couldn't deal with people who could fly. The Air Force Lieutenant Colonel said that it is difficult for airborne missiles to hit such a fast-moving and small target. In the end, General Ross made a decision: ignore it for the time being and keep paying attention. If the other party does not show hostility, try to negotiate. It is best to let the other party cooperate in research and create super soldiers belonging to Yingzhong. Then, let's break up the meeting and prepare for war. This morning, the major secret departments were turbulent and noisy. The Stark mansion on the coast of Los Angeles is warm and lazy. Until Jarvis woke Tony up from his dream with the Suona sound recorded by Leon before. Jesus, Jarvis, what are you doing? Tony stood up from the ground holding the quilt. He was frightened by the sudden Suona and rolled out of bed. The exciting melody, like a galloping horse, made his heart beat fast when he heard it, and he thought someone was trying to trample on his soft bed. Sir, Master Leon just asked me to wake you up and play this video for you. After speaking, Jarvis controlled the holographic projection equipment and showed the picture captured by Leon's mobile phone in front of Tony. In the screen, thousands of guns fired volleys, hundreds of grenades-covered bombs, vehicle-mounted missiles and Jericho missiles appeared one after another. The screen was filled with fires, large fires, explosions, bigger explosions, and Tony was stunned for a moment. He didn't even have time to worry about Leon facing these dangerous weapons in the picture. The progress bar had already reached the end. What is this? A promotional video that Leon made overnight. Where is he now? Master Leon is destroying the 10 Rings gang in Afghanistan. Sir, the scene in the video was shot for you in real time by him 10 minutes ago. He's in West Asia. God, when did he leave the house? It's only now. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Tony looked at the bright sun outside and rubbed his face. He actually ran away alone, so why did he take this video for me? Master Leon wants you to take a good look at the Stark weapons in the video, sir. Stark arms. The expression on Tony's face froze. He pulled the video to the beginning and watched it again, his expression getting worse and worse. They are basically Stark's weapons. Also, why are the Jericho missiles in the 10 Rings gang's base? Tony's face was expressionless, but his trembling cheeks revealed his restless mood. I only sold this kind of missile to the military. Where did these people get it? Was it the military, or Obadiah? Sir, there is only one batch of Jericho missiles produced so far, which is the batch you sold. Jarvis said. Quote. Tony stopped talking with a dull face. After a few seconds, he put on his shirt and pushed out the door. Jarvis, you control Leon's suit of armor, and come with me to West Asia, and yes, the Middle East. Okay, sir, by the way, do you think you can sleep tonight? Why do you ask? Tony frowned. Master Leon asked me to ask you this question and provide him with the results in a timely manner. Quote. Tony opened his mouth, hesitated, and finally took a deep breath, exhaling breath from his nose. Tell him that when I can't sleep, I will make him unable to sleep either. After saying that, he unfolded his hands and immediately put on the Mark III armor. Follow me, Jarvis. He controlled the suit to take off, followed by Super Mark I controlled by Jarvis. Super Mark I is the name given by Leon himself. This big boy is so eager to win that he even wants to take advantage of his name. Morning in Los Angeles is night in Afghanistan. This night is destined to be restless. The flames of guns and guns soared into the sky one after another on this land. If you look down from the sky, it looks like a candlestick that lights up one after another and then goes out in an instant. They light up from the northeast corner of the map, one after another, and finally dim in the southwest corner. Tell me the current time, Jarvis. Leon looked down at the last 10 Commandments gang base that was in ruins and filled with smoke. It's 11:08 p.m. local time. Well, it took some time. It took 8 minutes longer than planned. I don't know why, but every time I see people from the 10 Rings gang using missiles. He couldn't help but want to wait. Wait until the missile is launched, and then blow up the missile in front of the terrorists. By then, even the most religious and stubborn members of the 10 Commandments gang will be driven to the point of despair. Killing people is also heartbreaking. Leon even felt that he was going a little too far. But I have to say, it's really fun to do this. Especially when looking down at the thugs who were scared to tears and saying, "Is this all you have?" It's really disappointingly weak. That would be even better. It's just a bit of a waste of time. After cleaning up the 10 Rings gang in this country, the next step is the Eagle's military base. Master Leon, what are you going to do? Just show your strength and destroy the weapons. After all, it is the people above who make the decision. Most ordinary soldiers just follow orders, and not necessarily all are willing to start a war. Your choices have always been wise. Master Leon, Mr. Stark has entered the Afghan border and is contacting you. Do you want to get through? Refuse for now, tell him I'm busy, and let him fly west to find the 10 Rings gang in other areas if he wants to take revenge. Leon flew to the nearest Eagle garrison base. There are 7 more bases like this in and around Afghanistan. In the next few years, it will expand to 19. With so many bases built around a small and backward country, it can be said that Yingjong is a drunkard and his ambition is obvious. During this trip to Afghanistan, Leon originally only planned to eliminate the 10 Rings gang, and the follow-up plan was left to be slowly advanced in the future. But the little girl he met at the beginning of the night made him change his mind. After all, I have come here, in the middle of the night, and if I don't do something by the way, I feel ashamed of the memory of my previous life. Although the eagle in the Marvel world is not exactly the same as the one in the previous life. But Leon couldn't help but want to repair the talons of this bald eagle. When he landed over the base, air defense sirens quickly rang through every barracks. These well-trained soldiers are more alert and efficient than terrorists. Before Leon even made any offensive move, machine guns were aimed at him one by one. The communication equipment outside the base began to threaten, "Intruder, land now. Stop where you are, otherwise we will open fire immediately." The domineering tone, the quickly assembled troops, and the uniform muzzles. Leon couldn't help but sneer. He had not considered peaceful negotiation as an option. When dealing with a group of robbers, it is time to speak after you have subdued them and beaten them to pain. Leon's chest puffed up slightly, and after inhaling, he exhaled cold air. He chooses to use his freeze breath to finish off his enemies. The wind suddenly rose. The bone-chilling wind suddenly swept through every corner of the military base. Following the cold wind were layers of rapidly spreading ice. Layers of ice climbed on the surface of the base building like vines, invading the interior and freezing all weapons and ammunition. Even the troops in the camp were not immune. Each soldier quickly turned into an iceman. It's just that the ice layer on their bodies is much thinner. When the entire base is wrapped in ice, it becomes as frosty and clear as an ice crystal castle in a fairy tale. Leon stopped. He nodded with satisfaction, then raised his fist and punched the wall of the base hard. It looked like a light punch, neither painful nor itchy, and couldn't make any waves. Caw, caw. However, circles of fine cracks immediately spread along the impact point and quickly spread throughout the building. When the cracks are dense enough to reach a critical point, the wall under Leon's fist collapsed and shattered instantly, breaking into debris wrapped in ice. The collapse of this part of the wall was like the first domino to fall. Soon the surrounding walls began to break, and the entire garrison base was caught in a chain reaction. The wall, which had become extremely fragile due to low temperature freezing, was completely unable to resist the conduction of this force. I saw buildings collapsing one after another. What a spectacular scene! Taking Leon as the starting point, all base buildings, as well as the items in the buildings, collapsed into ruins one after another. But the sound of the building collapsing is not dull, but is particularly pleasant to the ears because of the knocking of ice cubes. For a time, the sounds of solid objects breaking and ice colliding came one after another, like thousands of jade stones shattering and phoenixes singing in unison. When everything was shattered, the huge base complex had become debris everywhere. Various fragments with rugged cracks reflected the moonlight at night in the ice. Leon landed on the ground and stepped on the ruins, making a crunching sound. Directly in front of him was the only thing left in this garrison base, Eagle's soldiers. Thousands of soldiers lost consciousness in the ice. Although they will definitely leave roots of disease in the future, at least their lives are safe. Leon's control of power is extremely precise. He destroyed all the base buildings, weapons and ammunition, but was able to spare the soldiers inside the base any harm. Even the hidden wounds left to these people were deliberate, small punishments and big warnings. "You're asking for trouble," Leon whispered. His eyes quickly turned red and shot out heat rays. However, the maximum temperature can exceed the surface temperature of the sun, enough to burn all the heat rays in the world. At this time, the ice sculptures that swept across the soldiers were barely able to thaw them. What a delicate control this is. Okay, so cold. He is Superman. There is actually a Superman in this world. We were just provoking Superman. As soon as the soldiers thawed, they all collapsed to the ground, hugging their own bodies or the bodies of others, and rubbing them hard to generate heat. They looked at Leon standing on the ruins, and they didn't dare to express their anger. Even the few lieutenant colonels with 3-stripe epaulets on their shoulders in the crowd did not dare to say another arrogant word at this time. Now, I am officially informing you that you will withdraw from Asia within a week, otherwise I will come back again. Don't say I didn't predict it. The ice cubes under Leon's feet reflected a blue and illusory light in the moonlight. In the eyes of all the soldiers, Leon at this time was like a cold blade, hanging over their heads and ready to chop down at any time. There was silence among the crowd, no one answered, no one dared to speak. Leon didn't wait for an answer. After leaving a warning, he took off and left. These top soldiers, as well as a handful of mid-level officers among them, do not yet have the authority to respond to requests for troop withdrawal. He has to continue to show his strength in order to make the Eagle temporarily take advantage of it. And if he wants to completely resolve the subsequent disputes, he will have to wait until he takes down Hydra and resist a nuclear bomb. The next target is 26 kilometers to the east. Try to solve it within 1 minute. Leon suddenly accelerated in the air. At the first base, he seemed to have done a lot and spent a lot of time. But in fact, from the moment he flew above the base to the time he smashed the base and left, it actually took less than 3 minutes. Therefore, Leon planned to eliminate all the Eagle bases before the 7 or 8 satellites above his head could react. That's right, in the past hour, more and more satellites have been monitored above Leon. First, there are 2 high-precision satellites added by Eagle later. It was the rabbit next door who saw something was wrong with his neighbor and sent one to him. Then slowly, the 5 permanent members came, and a group of satellites were as lively as a meeting above his head. Leon didn't mind this at all. He even wished that every country would have a live broadcast, so that the people who had been suffering for a long time could see how he solved the Eagle's base. On the other side, Tony was still on his way to the scene. Jarvis, what do you mean by saying that Leon didn't answer my call and went to find trouble at the army base by himself? Tony communicated with Jarvis while flying. That was what I was supposed to do. Sir, you mean, you also planned to attack Yingzhong's base? Jarvis asked. Attack, you didn't use the word accurately. It should be to help them relieve their anxiety about having too much ammunition. I understand, you plan to destroy Yingfeng's firepower and expel them from this area like Master Leon. Is that kid going to do this? Tony pouted. He always steals my job. Because Yingfeng sent Jericho to a terrorist organization without authorization, I want to come to ask for an explanation. What is he doing? Maybe for a girl, sir. Jarvis replied thoughtfully. It turns out it's for a girl. That's not surprising. That guy is as gentlemanly as I am. He treats all girls. Wait, what did you say, a girl? Tony exclaimed belatedly. Is it one of his ex-girlfriends who was kidnapped by Yingfeng? Or is it that a girl he met locally was bullied by Yingfeng? Tony became interested. It's a local little girl. She should be bullied by the Eagle forces, sir. Jarvis said matter-of-factly. Wow, this is really shocking news. Tell me the information about that girl. I will share it with Pepper when I get back. The parents' gossip began to sprout. This is to search for information for you. Shafika Mazari, 7 years old, born in Kabul, Afghanistan. Wait, isn't it taking away the boy? Tony's eyes widened. 7 years old. What's the problem, sir? Tony was silent for a moment. Didn't you tell Leon that he was committing a crime? Sir, although Master Leon killed 2 terrorists when he helped the Mazari family escape the harassment of the 10 Rings gang, that should be considered an act of righteousness and not a crime. Oh, are you saying that he and this little girl didn't have an affair? Well, I mean, he felt compassion for this girl, so he went to attack the Eagle base. Tony was slightly ashamed, feeling deeply guilty for the dirty thoughts he had just had in his heart. I have been wandering around in Vanity Fair too much, and everything I look at is colored. How can this be done? It seems that I have to stop drinking and gambling from now on. That's right. Do you have a different understanding? Jarvis was confused. Ahem, actually I think so too. Okay, Jarvis, help me navigate to where Leon is now. Tony changed the subject. Sorry, Master Leon's current speed exceeds Mach 20, so positioning is a bit difficult. Is he in such a hurry? Then you navigate to where he wants to go. Yes, sir. 5 minutes later, Tony Stark came to the sky above an Eagle garrison base. He looked down at the ruins covered by a sheet of ice crystals, as well as a large group of troops shivering in woolen blankets waiting for rescue, and felt a little silent. Jarvis, you said Leon is here. Sir, this is Master Leon's destination 5 minutes ago. He left 3 minutes ago. Tony complained. You should have told me earlier. Now let's go to his next destination. No, to his last destination. Tony gritted his teeth. It seems that he plans to destroy all the bases directly, so let's hurry up and get rid of his target before he does. Without thinking, Tony could guess Leon's plan. That means destroying all Ying Fang's garrison bases. In this way, even if he doesn't kill a single soldier. But because the base that Ying Fang spent several years building was all in vain. After that, even if Ying Fang didn't want to retreat, he had to retreat. Such a plan coincides with Tony's own ideas. However, his original plan was just to destroy the weapons and ammunition in the military base. Compared with Leon's approach of taking money from the bottom of the cauldron, it still seems a bit trivial. Sir, this is the navigation for you, but you seem a little unhappy. Jarvis asked. It could analyze the corresponding emotions from Tony's tone and expression, but it was confused. Master Leon wiped out all the 10 Rings gang bases for you to take revenge, and also destroyed the Yingfang base to indirectly vent your anger. Wouldn't it be good? Of course it's good. I'm so moved. Tony felt a tightness in his chest, but I just feel aggrieved. Jarvis, do you know what aggrieved is? Aha, you analyze it. Being frustrated means that when something goes wrong and you have negative emotions, you are unable to talk or vent. Yes, that's it. Leon doesn't leave me any enemies, which makes me feel aggrieved. Tony's voice suddenly became louder. Do you feel that he is treating me like a child? I don't quite understand. Legally speaking, you are Master Leon's brother. That's the problem. It's me who should protect him and do these things. Tony twisted his neck. Speed up, Jarvis, we must solve the last military base before Leon. Yes, sir. Although Tony's thoughts are wonderful, his will to maintain his dignity as an older brother is also very firm, and his ability to act is also very strong. But it's a pity. When he arrived at the last Eagle base, what he saw was still a frozen ruin. Tony's head was full of battle plans and his fighting spirit was instantly cooled down, even colder than the soldiers below who were shaking like chaff. Jarvis, where is he? Tony asked numbly. He's above you, sir. Huh, me above. Tony suddenly became energetic and looked up to see Leon's cloak flying down. Tony, you're finally here. Leon teased as soon as they met. I thought you had to wait for me to get some sleep before coming. Tony was furious. You want to sleep. You used Jarvis to wake me up and rush over, but you rushed forward like a train, leaving no enemy for me. Leon spread his hands. I asked Jarvis to tell you that if you want revenge, go west. There are still many 10 Rings gangs waiting in the Middle East. Can this be the same? Tony held his breath. What's the difference? Leon didn't care much. They are all villains from the 10 Commandments gang. They didn't have ABC carved on their foreheads. They are all equally guilty. As he spoke, he glanced at the Supermark 1 controlled by Jarvis next to him. But I can also see that you are really serious this time. You even brought my armor. Are you planning to fight a protracted war? Are you talking about a protracted battle where all the enemies will either die or be shivering from the cold? Flames spurted out from Tony's feet. Listen, I'm going to the west now, and the 10 Rings gang there will be left to me. Although Afghanistan has been settled by Leon. But Tony still wanted to do something. The harm he unknowingly caused to the world in the past is irreparable. But he still wanted to do his best to make amends. Even if this may seem like he is just touching himself, or soothing his inner guilt. Okay, I'll leave everything to you, I won't interfere for the time being. Leon looked at the time. but pay attention to the time. Tony, I will prepare lunch at home and wait for you to return. Then maybe what you should prepare is dinner. Tony said that he could fight with the 10 Rings gang all day long. Leon shrugged and was about to say something else when he suddenly looked up at the sky. He looked through the clouds and saw a large group of satellites moving overhead hundreds of kilometers away. It's so fast to catch up. He sighed. He shouted to Tony, Tony, my current identity as Superman has been noticed by various countries. Please remember not to have contact with me in uniform during this period to avoid being suspected. Tony, who had already flown to the west, waved back to express receipt. When Leon got rid of a bunch of satellites and returned home, it was already close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Los Angeles time. He simply made a few omelets to go with pasta for lunch. As for Tony, as he said before, he fought with the 10 Rings gang until dinner time and still hadn't gone home. So Leon naturally tested the thrust once in the basement, then flew into space and began to bask in the sun. He and Tony worked together to develop an experimental plan to predict the upper limit of the growth of Kryptonian bloodline. The specific process is that he tests the thrust once a day before going to space to bask in the sun, and then again after that. And repeat this process for a month, keeping the sun exposure time the same each time. In this way, the two can build a rough model with the help of Jarvis. Use this to estimate the upper limit of Leon's physical enhancement. Of course, Leon readily agreed to such a simple test. Moreover, sunbathing time every day has always been his most anticipated and happiest moment. Facing the sun in space is like being immersed in a hot spring, and the sound of blood flowing is the sound of gurgling spring water. At that moment, he could always clearly feel his strength increasing rapidly. The rapidity and turbulence of its speed are like the fish rushing into the river after the river thaws in spring. Moreover, judging from the experience of the past few days, this speed of getting stronger is still getting faster. Leon understands that if the effect of a person's exercise is an arc that first rises and then falls, then he is in the ascending stage at this time. Looking at the overall growth stage of Kryptonians, it may also be defined as a weak period when they are becoming stronger at a rapid speed. Reflected in numerical values. After a few more days of basking in the sun, Leon's whole body thrust had reached a massive 400,000 tons. This speed of getting stronger made Leon feel so happy every second he spent basking in the sun, as if he had been hit with a ton of dopamine. That feeling of pleasure is like taking a certain kind of shiver that makes people enter the sage mode, which is done one after another without stopping. Beep. Just when he was feeling so comfortable that he couldn't help himself, Jarvis's voice reminded him that the time was over. Leon reluctantly opened his eyes, flew out of the manned spacecraft, and prepared to go home for dinner. Today, the spacecraft that was originally used to protect him allows him to safely bask in the sun. It has become a park where he stays temporarily every day. Staying in space, it is specially used as a foothold when basking in the sun. After all, if he basked in the sun directly in a vacuum, he would be easily discovered by satellites from various countries. At that time, a large group of satellites will gather around him like a gorilla in a zoo, which is very annoying. Leon soon returned home. After completing a set of thrust tests, Jarvis suddenly prompted, Master Leon, Mr. Stark was pursued by the Eagle Flight Formation on his return trip. Do you want to go to support him? Tony is being chased. Where is he? Leon was stunned. In the middle of the West Coast Mountains. Huh, isn't that the place where I was chased by a reconnaissance plane last time? I see. Leon showed a gloating smile. We finally reached the familiar part of the movie. Tony must have flown into California from the Eastern Pacific and was directly photographed by the military airspace satellite. Master Leon, Mr. Stark's current situation is not optimistic. This is the picture sent back from the scene. Jarvis pops up a projection in front of Leon. The scene is from Tony's first point of view. I saw service fighter jets flying down one after another in the thick clouds. They were so densely packed that there were as many as a dozen, which was enough to start a small battle. Leon could hear Tony whispering shit in the screen, and then his vision turned 180 degrees, preparing to escape. The next moment, countless projectiles flew past him. The screen also began to shake. It was obvious that Tony had eaten a bunch of bullets from the aircraft's machine gun. This looks like he is going to be taught a hard lesson by the Air Force. Leon raised his eyebrows, but he didn't have too much worry in his heart. I remember that the current Mark III's top speed has exceeded Mach 8. It would be easy for Tony to escape, right? He touched his chin. Is it possible that he turned around confidently and planned to fight with the Air Force? That's not the case, Master Leon. Jarvis explained. With Mr. Stark's physical fitness, the time that can support the armor to explode at its fastest speed is actually very short. If it exceeds a certain time, his heart will explode due to excessive pressure. Normally, the average speed of the Mark III will remain around Mach 2, but this will also continue to consume Mr. Stark's physical strength. Leon couldn't help laughing. In other words, after fighting the Ten Rings gang, he was so exhausted that he couldn't speed up anymore, right? You're right, Jarvis said. Then why hasn't he asked me for help? Mr. Stark only asked me to send you this video. I understand, this guy just talks hard. Leon moved his shoulders. However, although he even coyly asked for help, how could I not save him? After all, he is my beloved relative and friend. You were right, Jarvis. Of course, legally speaking, you and Mr. Stark are the closest people to each other at the moment. Jarvis failed to understand the ridicule in Leon's words. Leon smiled. Help me prepare the Mark II, I want to teach Tony a lesson. Don't you wear a Superman suit? The steel suit seems to only limit your ability to display your strength. Wearing armor makes it easier to attend class. He had thought before that he would show up to put on a show when Tony was feeling down, and this opportunity just came. Leon's gaze crossed to the West Coast mountains. Tony was currently shuttled between the locks of several airborne missiles, like a petrel flying through a storm. Most of the beautiful and luxurious golden red armor has now turned black. It was also covered with bullet holes and scratches, like a kebab that had just come off the grill. Look at how badly our Uncle Tony was bullied. Leon walked towards the garage. There is no time to mourn for the deflated Tony. Next, it is time for the hero Leon to come on the scene and turn the tide. At the same time, military command room. The same group of senior officials who met a few hours ago to discuss the Afghan Superman gathered together again. They were all looking at the satellite images on the projection screen. Above it is the golden red armor that was almost hit by a missile, twisting left and right, and the blue-red armor on the side covering it. They are not Superman, Rhodes judged. These are just two humanoid exoskeleton mechas. Superman can definitely destroy our flying formation easily. When the two armors entered the country, the soldier responsible for monitoring thought it was Superman coming, so he immediately pressed the emergency button and reported to his superiors. That's why the elite flight formation consisting of more than a dozen fighter planes has been dispatched. But where did this thing come from? Rod, did you just use, An Air Force lieutenant colonel slapped the table. Two people in this thing held back our entire formation. You still think it's not strong and say it's just an exoskeleton mecha. Rhodes touched his face. I am comparing it with Superman. I work in the weapons research department, so of course I know what these two things mean. But they really should be described as, just. Look at the technology on them. Unknown high-power stable energy, ultra-high strength and precision metal materials, incredible anti-gravity systems and energy transmission systems. These technologies are at least 10 years ahead of us. If these technologies were in our hands, the Pentagon could start planning to dominate the world tomorrow. What I can't understand is why the other party uses such technology to build mechas. It's like a person being protected by a group of tanks and fighting hand to hand on the battlefield. And have you noticed that the other party has not made any active attacks? Is it possible that they are actually from our side? Rhodes advised. So why don't we try to communicate with the other party first? The highest-ranking Air Force Lieutenant General, General Ross, made a direct decision. Whether they are from our side or not, shoot them down first. Wait, what is that? It looks like another exoskeleton armor. Suddenly a colonel pointed at the projection screen and exclaimed. Everyone looked over. At some point, a silver-white battle armor appeared next to the golden-red battle armor. They are organized. Shoot them all down. The beard on Rose's mouth trembled. Leon saw two armors flying through the hail of bullets from a distance. He accelerated and flew to the side of the embarrassed Tony. Tony, I haven't seen you for a long time. Why do you look like you went to the oil field for a dip? Ah! Tony exclaimed from the golden red armor. He turned around and almost attacked after seeing Leon. Leon, maybe next time you appear, you can look a little more like a human instead of a ghost. Tony was really shocked. He almost lost his balance in the air. Also, why are you wearing my armor? Leon tilted his head. Of course it's because you took my armor away. He looked back behind him, and saw more than a dozen fighter planes chasing him to death. The bullets never stopped pouring, and more than a dozen bullets in the air blocked most of the escape routes. I mean, why don't you wear those tight underwear of yours? Tony dodged a string of bullets with difficulty. You have forgotten who I am when I wear the Superman uniform, and I can't meet you for the time being. Compared with Tony, Leon's evasive movements seemed to be very easy. But mainly because I planned to show you the correct use of this iron knot. What, you mean you brought me the instruction manual for the Mark armor? That's really great, I just need this. Tony curled his lips. The next step is not in the instruction manual. Watch out, I won't use my own strength during the whole process. Leon firmly remembered the positions of all the fighter jets behind him and suddenly shouted. Jarvis, deploy the ailerons. There was a scoff. The silver-white Mark II armor unfolded its ailerons and suddenly slowed down. Jarvis was always so considerate at critical moments, and he would do whatever you asked him to do immediately, without any hesitation. Even this order from Leon caused the Mark armor to fall directly into the fighter group. Hey, what are you doing? Tony was stunned and turned to watch Leon flying behind him. The fighter pilots behind were also dumbfounded. Turning around, he saw the silver-white armor flying beside his cabin, waving enthusiastically to him. Call the command center. Target number 3 suddenly slowed down and rushed into our queue, requesting to change the attack target. The captain of the fleet immediately grabbed the radio and shouted wildly. Allow the attack. Be sure to shoot it down. The command was issued at the same time. Attack, attack, attack. The fighter group immediately dispersed its formation. One part accelerated forward, and the other part decelerated behind, surrounding the Mark II as if it had been rehearsed hundreds of times. Although there was panic at the beginning, the fighter pilots almost grinned after forming their formation. In their eyes, the enemy's initiative to enter their own encirclement is no different from delivering food. Unit number 1 has locked the target. Unit 2 is locked. Quote. Continuous reports sounded on the channel, and the captain immediately ordered an attack. Attack. Launch airborne missiles. Fire. Fire all the bombs. Each fighter plane is launching missiles and uses onboard machine guns to block the evasion space. Leon was bombarded from all directions. The speed of more than a dozen missiles increases very quickly after being launched, and they can hit the Mark II within a few seconds. Naturally, Leon will not sit still and wait for death. He completely turned off the propulsion device and fell downwards in a horizontal parabolic arc. Such a move was completely unexpected by the other party. The missiles coming from all directions suddenly fell in front of the Mark II. Although under the control of the tracking system, they quickly changed direction. But this encounter caused the missile group's speed to drop sharply, to less than 1/3 of its previous speed. Pursue downward. The fighter group also began to turn around. Jarvis, turn on the smart locking system. Leon neither uses supervision nor super strength, and relies entirely on the function of the Mark II suit itself to fight back. Jarvis moved very quickly marking the trajectories and current speeds of each missile on the projection in his helmet. Very good. Leon began to accelerate backwards, and the missile swarm chased in front of him. The direction of their actions at this time was completely opposite to Tony's previous direction. Leon, Tony's voice cut into the helmet at this time, what do you want to do? Calm down and try not to attack. We're the invaders, now, don't escalate the situation. Their mechas have not been registered with Eagle. Moreover, the mechas also carry thermal weapons. Strictly speaking, they are intruders with bad intentions. It makes sense that those fighter jets shot them down. I'll do it, don't worry, just see how I deal with them. Leon replied briefly. He operated the Mark armor and began to accelerate, but controlled the speed to always be slower than the missile group behind him. When the missile was extremely close, he suddenly shifted his position. In just a short moment, the acceleration of the armor first decreased and then increased. After the speed changed, he made a dang, sound and stuck to the side of a missile. Jarvis, use current to absorb the missile shell, and be careful to shield the electromagnetic signal to avoid triggering the fuse sensor. After Leon gave an order, he controlled the propulsion flames ejected from the soles of Mark II and suddenly increased the power. He starts to speed up with the missile. The silver armor and military green missiles seemed to blend into one. The two accelerated together, temporarily distanced themselves from other missiles, and drew a huge arc in the air. At this time, other missiles had begun to lose their tracking accuracy, scattering in the air, no longer pursuing Leon like a swarm. This is also a sign that the missile is about to explode. Leon estimated the time in his mind, loosened his armor hands at the stuck point, and moved away from the side of the missile controlled by him. 3, 2, 1, boom. He accelerated quickly, the countdown in his mouth ended, and a loud explosion sounded behind him. Boom. Several missiles hit the side of the missile controlled by Leon and exploded in advance. The airflow in the air was violently pushed away, and other scattered missiles were affected and detonated immediately. The flames of the explosion suddenly spread over the West Coast mountains, and within a range of nearly a kilometer, there was thick billowing smoke. The pilots in the fighter group were stunned. They could not understand why the Mark II could evade the pursuit of missiles so easily. But they soon ran out of time to daze. Even the long wind in the sky cannot dispel the smoke of dozens of missiles exploding simultaneously in a short period of time. All the fighter jets had no time to react, and they all plunged into the dark smoke. Target lost. Duplicate, target lost. The captain reported. Accelerate and rush out of the blocked line of sight area, continue the pursuit, and never let the opponent run away. The command headquarters ordered. However, Leon did not take the opportunity to escape, but turned around and flew towards the aftermath of the explosion. Give me a flight trajectory simulation based on the enemy plane's flight direction and speed, Jarvis. The projection on the armor's face flashed, and dozens of trajectories were immediately simulated in the image of thick smoke. At the same time, Leon made a lot of calculations in his mind, estimated the approximate time, and accelerated into the smoke. He quickly approached one of the tracks. Prepare to turn, Jarvis. As soon as he finished speaking, a fighter plane suddenly appeared in front of the Mark II through the black fog. Seeing that they were about to collide, the armor suddenly stopped and turned, flying upward. The pilot in the fighter plane was so frightened that his eyes widened, but he immediately reacted and controlled the plane to lift. At the same time, he pressed one of the hundreds of control buttons in the cabin, opened the weapon bay, and ran the machine gun to pour bullets. Unit number 13 has found the target. Report, Unit number 13 has found the target. Attack, attack, the captain ordered. Unit 13 chased closely behind Leon and hit Mark II with several bullets, causing Leon to shake. This made the pilot of Unit 13 even more excited. He pushed the thrusters to the bottom and pursued Leon at high speed. But suddenly the Mark II turned again. The pilot was stunned and was about to follow when another fighter plane suddenly rushed out of the black fog in front of him. Fake. The pilot quickly raised the aircraft, but it was still too late. The bottom and top of the two aircraft collided, and the friction force at high speed directly destroyed most of the aircraft. The fighter jet immediately emitted flames and black smoke, and its engine system and exhaust system were damaged, making it unable to continue flying. The pilot of Plane 13 reluctantly pushed down the rudder, let the plane fall, opened the parachute device, and ejected from the cabin. Plane 13 has collided. Eject now. But the other fighter plane that suffered a disaster was even worse. The glass cockpit of the fighter jet was directly destroyed, and the pilot was instantly unconscious. It was Leon who noticed something was wrong, turned around and helped pull him out of the cabin, so that the pilot did not fall with the fighter plane. On the other side, pilot number 13 also discovered something was wrong. He opened his parachute in the air and saw two planes falling at the same time below, but there was no second voice reporting battle damage in the audio, so he hurriedly called for help. Unit number 7 collided with me and fell at the same time. He has no signal. He may be pursued by the enemy. Apply for rescue. Mayday, Mayday. How passionately he shouted for attack before, now he shouts for Mayday just as loudly. Soon Leon heard the sound of swooping downwards one by one in the clouds. Apparently the remaining fighter planes were heading to the rescue. He had a strange look on his face. It seems this exhibition match is over. Looking down at the pilot in his hand, he landed thoughtfully, put the pilot on the ground, and then flew towards Los Angeles. Good luck to you then, buddy. The fighter jet group was busy rescuing people. Although the headquarters saw the Mark II leaving through satellite, it also knew that it was too late to pursue it now, so it could only beat the table. Let them escape, Ross furiously said helplessly. Send me more Air Force squads. It's too late, General. Rhodes analyzed bluntly from the side. Judging from the acceleration shown by the opponent several times, it is impossible to catch up now. Fake. On the other side, Leon and Tony meet up. The two flew back to the beach house together. With the size and speed of the Mark armor, as long as it is not photographed by satellites, it will not be tracked home. Jarvis helped guard the satellite, so the two flew leisurely. I didn't use weapons, right? Just like you requested, there was no direct conflict and no casualties. Leon said, however, after seeing what I did just now, do you feel like you were taught a lesson? He asked emphatically how Tony felt. After all, this trip was just to show off in front of Tony. I have been thinking about this for a long time. But he also thinks about Tony. After all, Tony has a close relationship with many people in the military, and there is a high probability that he will reveal his identity as Iron Man in the future. So in order to avoid a dispute between Tony and the military, he followed Tony's instructions throughout the process and did not take the initiative to attack. In the end, he even saved a pilot. Good. Tony was speechless for a moment, because he really felt amazing. Jarvis had just transmitted the footage of the Mark II to him in real time. Leon's precise control of speed, time and direction is something he can't do now. Tony has not even thought that the battle armor can be as flexible as Leon just now. After all, he has just gotten started and has not flown a few times. He just feels that the Mark armor should be controlled like Leon, it is so handsome. Of course, Tony couldn't admit defeat. You just used your own power, right? That must be it. Tony deceived himself. Absolutely not. Jarvis knows everything about Mark II, he can guarantee me. Leon presented the evidence. Jarvis immediately cooperated. Yes, sir, Master Leon just controlled the actions of the armor throughout the entire process, and all the data were normal. Of course Tony knew this fact, he was just being tough. But you shot down 2 fighter jets, and it still doesn't work if you don't settle the opponent peacefully. Leon was happy to tease Tony. I neither used weapons nor took the initiative to attack. Can you blame me for the opponent's mistakes? Tony, you are not so strict with yourself. Okay, my dear Leon, for the sake of the dinner you prepared for me, I admit that you are the stronger one this time. Tony raised his hands in surrender. Thank you for the compliment. As long as you keep working hard, Tony, you will be as good as me one day. Leon immediately showed a happy expression after hearing this. But what dinner are you talking about? Tony looked stunned. Don't tell me you didn't prepare dinner. I'm so hungry right now that I could eat the entire cheeseburger in Los Angeles. Actually, I didn't do it. I just finished the strength test and went to save our soldier Tony, but I didn't have time to prepare dinner. Leon gave an answer that disappointed Tony. Then order takeout, Tony suggested. I agree. While waiting for the takeout, maybe you can take the opportunity to send a message to Rhodes and tell him that you are the Iron Man who caused the military to jump up and down today. Why should I tell him? Tony was puzzled. This will expose my identity. Your flamboyant style will be exposed sooner or later. It's better to ventilate it with Rhodes in advance so that he can be mentally prepared to help cover you. Oh, what you said seems to make sense. Leon, when did you know this? Did you learn it from fighting with little girls in school? I learned it when I was a kid and stopped you from bringing a strange woman home. Then you really have to thank me. The two voices of conversation gradually disappeared in the wind. Under the orange-red sunset, the sea surface undulated like maple trees in late autumn. In the reflection, 3 mechas flew into the Stark mansion together. A few days passed quickly. Everything remains calm for the Stark family. Leon clocks in every day to bask in the sun, waiting for the start of university in the new year. Tony didn't go to work as usual. He got up every day, stuffed bread and butter in his mouth and ran to the Middle East. According to him, the inherently evil 10 Rings gang will soon disappear from the world. And since he had an affair with Rhodes, he has never been caught by the military again. As for Pepper, Pepper discovered that Tony came home with an armor full of bullet holes the night before yesterday, and he was very angry. However, as usual, she still had nothing to do with Tony. After getting angry, she still worked diligently every day to shoulder the huge responsibility of the development of Stark Group. This is the daily life of the Stark family. Just like the sea outside the mansion, there are occasional waves, but most of the time it is calm and carefree. But for the world, the impact of Superman's appearance has begun to ferment, and undercurrents are surging from all sides. Navi TV station reports. In the morning, Leon came back from his morning exercise in space. After making breakfast, he saw Superman news on TV, reported by the local TV media KNKV. There seems to be no doubt that Superman appears in our world. The female host held the manuscript with a serious expression. In the past few days, although he has not appeared again, there are still countless people proving his existence and praying for his reappearance. What he did that night completely changed our world. The voice fell, and the news screen switched, turning into a noisy press conference. There was only a middle-aged Afghan man with half-white hair on the podium. The large and small flashlights in the audience kept lighting up, but his eyes were always looking at the camera. It was Superman who saved our country and our people. He tried his best to amplify his voice, as if trying to make his words more deafening. I was lucky enough to take a picture of him that night. He was fighting for us. He is a Superman, the one upon whom all things depend. He has no place to come and no place to go, and nothing can be his enemy. He is our God and our Savior. The Father is in him, and he and the Father are one. At the same time, someone moved a thick screen behind the middle-aged man. After it was lit, the scene of Superman facing the missile began to play. Look at him, how majestic he is, he has driven away all the wolves, we are all his lambs. The man shouted to the camera. The scene finally ends here, and the perspective jumps back to KNKV's live newsroom. The female host sat upright and said, "The man in the picture is Afghan war correspondent Abdullah. He once filmed the scene of Superman's first appearance. He raised his arms and shouted at the press conference that Superman was the reincarnation of the Holy Spirit of God." During this period, countless people came to the camera to tell their own stories about Superman coming into reality. The screen jumps again. A little girl was interviewed by a reporter and spoke categorically. Two bad guys wanted to break in that night, but Superman suddenly appeared and stopped them. The girl's father also said, "Superman said that the Ten Rings gang would leave as soon, and he did it. Not only that, but now even Yingfang." The following words were not released, and the news screen jumped to another person. "He fell from the sky. Like a shooting star. I didn't make a wish, but he destroyed the terrorist who wanted to force my sister." One boy danced and described. There are many more scenes like this. There is a short clip of Afghan guardsmen saluting a photo of Superman. There is a scene of everyone in a run-down village crying and shouting, "Superman," in front of the rice fields. Besides, the relevant material was played for 5 minutes before the live broadcast screen was switched back to the studio. As more and more people confirm the existence of Superman, we have to start thinking about what impact he will have on our society. Is he like Superman in the comics, just and selfless, like a god on Earth? Or is he just a parody in uniform, using the name of Superman to satisfy his own vanity? According to our reporter's understanding, yesterday a large number of our returning soldiers had to give up aid to local residents under the pressure of Superman. We don't know whether he is a dictator or a hypocrite wearing a mask, and we cannot make a correct judgment immediately. Next, let's listen to the analysis of sociologist Francis Wyndham. Leon held his chin up and watched with interest as the scholar who just appeared analyzed Superman eloquently. From comic analysis to reality, from clothing to childhood, the story is told as if it were true, and the final conclusion is that Superman is a paranoid man who loves to drink milk. The analysis process was based on references from classics, so much so that Leon himself almost believed it. Are you reading these boring reports again? Haven't you seen enough after so many days? Tony walked down the stairs. It's either full praise or complete extreme disparagement. What's so interesting about these views? Especially these TV stations, which have received political funds, want to portray you as a complete villain. It's just something like this. Why do you always look at it with gusto? He threw a roll of newspapers on the table and sat down next to Leon. And look at what these people wrote, they are all about Superman. Haven't they read the comics? I am so excited when a Superman appears. Leon glanced down. The newspaper read, a mysterious mecha appears in the Middle East, a parody of Superman. It turns out the problem lies here. Tony worked tirelessly for several days and basically wiped out the Ten Commandments gang in most of the Middle East. However, almost all media outlets did not report on him. Even if it was reported, he was mentioned first, and then the topic was immediately changed to Superman. No wonder Tony is so resentful. He is not a person who likes to walk in fine clothes at night. Perhaps you can buy a newspaper and ask them to write a report specifically for you. The title is, Iron Man Reappears, the hero who protects civilians in the Middle East. How about that? Tony raised his eyebrows. That's a good suggestion, but you know I'm not the kind of person who loves vanity. I'm here to help you fight against injustice, Leon. Come on, if you really want to help me fight the injustice, why not give those media some money and let them learn to tell the truth? Leon said. Tony got up and went to the table to get a piece of bread. I can do that if you wish. As he ate, he said, but do you really think you need it? No need. Leon still held his chin up. When Hydra is eliminated and my strength is revealed, the media will naturally speak for me. That's the truth. Tony tapped the screen with his index finger in agreement. The media's tongue only praises those who can shut them up. But I still don't understand how you went to Afghanistan for one night and gained so many staunch fans. Tony waved the slices of bread in his hand. You want to say believers. Pretty much, especially the reporter who seems to have suffered a lot. He has to say in front of the media every day that you are the true God and the Holy Spirit. He is a completely fanatical believer. You mean Abdullah? I don't know what happened to him. Maybe this is the simple folk customs over there. I thought you brainwashed him, you know, like Clark in Superman, who can manipulate other people's memories. Tony gestured with his hands in the air. I would like to have this kind of ability, it sounds exciting. Leon complained. What's an exciting way to do it? Tell me about it. You'd better just want to hear it instead of picturing it in your head. Ahem, where did I just say that? Oh yes, that Abdullah, he said in the interview that you saved his life. That's what happened. He was within the explosion range of the Jericho missile. I rescued him and asked him to help spread the video and deliver messages on my behalf. So he's that person. Tony suddenly realized. He appeared in the video you asked Jarvis to send me. No wonder he looks so familiar. Leon raised his head. You seem to be paying attention to him. Aha. Tony chewed the bread in his mouth. He said that in order to thank you, he planned to use all the money to buy Warner stock, so I asked Pepper to acquire Warner. You know how to make a lot of money. Leon's mouth twitched. Don't say that. Now the whole world is paying attention to Superman. After the acquisition of Warner, the shares of Stark Group have risen. Tony finished eating the bread and started to lick his fingers. I'm more curious about how you negotiated this acquisition. People all over the world are paying attention to DC now, and they have no reason to sell the company. Tony took out a piece of paper and wiped his fingers. Some other chables and countries, you know, are putting pressure on their companies, so I took the opportunity to enter. How to enter? You don't even sell arms, are you still qualified to enter? But I'm selling this now. Tony knocked on the arc reactor on his chest. New energy, everyone wants it. Leon's eyes widened slightly. Did you expose your identity? Tony looked left and right, turned around twice, and raised his palms. It's almost like Rhodes let it slip. Oh, that guy's mouth really seems to be a public service area, and he can't keep any secrets. Leon didn't believe it at all. Come on, Rhodes is just a bit humorous. How can he serve in a secret department if he is not strict with his words? He guessed. I think you are jealous of Superman's traffic, so you take the initiative to expose yourself to the outside world, and plan to attract all eyes to yourself. Tony stopped talking. He looked at the ceiling, pretended to be busy, patted himself, and then turned around and left the next moment. I was helping you relieve your stress. So many people are paying attention to you and misunderstanding you. I'm not allowed to stand up and lead by example. He waved his hand back. Okay, I'm leaving. Today is my last day to go to the Middle East. The Ten Rings gang will no longer exist. That's right. Tony walked out the door and suddenly turned back. I have a press conference tomorrow, please remember to attend. Quote. Looking at Tony's back, Leon's super brain was sunk. Half a minute later, the sound of steel armor igniting and taking off was heard outside the house. Tony, this guy, the press conference to be held tomorrow is probably going to be used to reveal his identity as Iron Man. Leon looked out the window at the Mark III disappearing into the horizon, and was speechless for a long time. He thought about it many times. The appearance of Iron Man, as the beginning of a major event in Marvel movies, is likely to be an absolute point in time. In other words, there is a high probability that Tony will say, I am Iron Man, no matter what. For this reason, Leon also guessed many reasons that might lead Tony to admit Iron Man's identity. But the reason why he blew himself up because he wanted to earn traffic was something he could never have imagined. What the hell, this world is so crazy. Leon couldn't help but curse. Forget it, Tony won't die anyway, don't care about him, sunbathing is important. Leon patted his butt and stood up, tore open his shirt, instantly transformed into Superman and flew into space. Shield. Nick Fury has thick dark circles under his eyes, even though his whole body is dark. But at this time, the bags under his eyes looked particularly black and large, like a piece of black coal briquettes hanging on an ink bottle. Is this your investigation report? He put down the document in his hand and raised his head to ask Coulson in front of him. The information inside is not as much as what was exposed on the TV station. At least they interviewed all the local people. Coulson lowered his head. Sorry, Director, Superman hasn't appeared since that day, and we can't find any clues. However, the videos played on TV actually contain a lot of information. As he spoke, Coulson took out a tablet and handed it to Nick Fury. Nick Fury's eyelids jumped when he saw the familiar movements of his men. Then he saw Coulson light up the screen and start playing a video he had watched hundreds of times in the past few days. The video content is divided into 3 parts. The first part was shot by the Afghan reporter Abdullah, showing Superman resisting vehicle-borne missiles and Jericho missiles. The second part is what Abdullah told Eagle on behalf of Superman. All foreign troops, leave the border immediately and give up the invasion. The third part is this reporter's personal belongings. He spent a whole hour promoting the greatness of Superman, spreading Superman's beliefs, and trying his best to link Superman with Allah. Although it was the hundreds of times he watched this video, Nick Fury still patiently watched it. Because the first part in the video is Superman's strongest performance in a battle so far. And just this time, no official satellite could record it completely. The only relatively comprehensive information is the video released by this reporter, which is of great significance to the study of Superman's strength. After the video ended, Nick Fury looked at Coulson. What conclusion did you draw from this? Director, it is obvious that Superman's strength, at least his defense and speed, surpasses all living things and even weapons on the Earth. Coulson weighed his words. Whether he is Superman in the comics or not, based on the power he has shown, our best option is to make friends and stabilize his emotions. Well, Nick Fury nodded. He rubbed the pager in his hand. Then tell me, does his personality belong to the extreme and unruly type? Do we need to suppress him? Suppress? Coulson was stunned. With all due respect, Director, we don't seem to have such means. Nick Fury glanced at his pager. I mean, assuming there is, do you think it is necessary? Coulson didn't answer immediately this time. He thought seriously for a few seconds. I don't think there is a need to suppress Superman. What's the reason? Nick Fury looked at Leon, who was unharmed in the sea of fire in the video, with an expressionless face. Although Superman only appeared once, he also destroyed the Eagle military base extremely forcefully and ordered the troops to withdraw. Coulson explained according to his own understanding, but he did not hurt innocent people in the process. His purpose is very clear, and he will even take the initiative to help vulnerable groups who are being bullied. Every local ordinary person who has come into contact with him has a very good impression of him and is filled with gratitude. So comprehensively speaking, he is more like a benefactor, or a judge, who has relatively positive values and strictly acts accordingly. Facing such people, if we suppress them, it will easily arouse strong resistance from the other party, create huge conflicts, and make the situation go beyond control. Nick Fury nodded in approval. This was also the question he had been thinking about these past few days. Facing Superman with a moral bottom line, showing kindness is the best choice. But what Nick Fury resents most is this feeling of being outside of control. So even though you have already figured out the best way to treat Superman, but he still couldn't help but want to defeat or conquer the other party and bring the other party completely under his control. What if we are powerful enough to defeat him easily? Do you have any other suggestions? Nick Fury feels that if Captain Marvel takes action, he will definitely defeat this so-called Superman. Coulson fell into deep thought this time. He thought about it carefully and still shook his head. I still don't think we should do anything. Why? Nick Fury frowned, and the flesh on his dark face was squeezed together. We haven't figured out Superman's true abilities yet, Director. If he is really like Superman in the comics, he can become stronger by just basking in the sun. Coulson took a breath. Then once we take action, unless we kill the opponent, we will face an enemy that continues to get stronger and whose future is unpredictable. You think so? Nick Fury stared closely at Superman on the screen, as if he wanted to get into it and see what kind of person he was. The room was silent for a few seconds. I have to admit, you were right, Coulson. Okay, your mission this time is over. Next, you coordinate the manpower, continue to pay attention to Superman's traces, and try to contact him after he appears. Nick Fury finally spoke. He put the pager back in the drawer and told Coulson. And remember to control public opinion on the internet. It can't be one-sided, and you can't let too much negative information arouse Superman's malice. Yes, Director. Coulson consciously took the documents and tablet and left without any dissatisfaction with being assigned consecutive tasks. Perhaps this is the legendary innate working body. It wasn't until Coulson closed the door and left that Nick Fury leaned on his seat, turned and looked out the window. He pulled out a Superman comic from the side, flipped through it a few times, and then threw it back. The world is not peaceful anymore. That plan needs to be accelerated. As for agents, there is only one cavalry person for the 7th level female agent, which is still not enough. Beep. Jarvis's warm reminder is that it's time to end a hearty sunbath. Leon half-heartedly pressed the button in the spacecraft, opened the hatch, and then returned to Earth without any interest. Recently, the speed of strength growth has been faster and faster. When basking in the sun, every cell in his body felt like it was flying on a rocket. The sour feeling made Leon unable to stop. Unfortunately, experiments to test the upper limit of the body require controlled variables. Therefore, in the past month, he had to spend a fixed amount of time receiving direct sunlight in space every day. Otherwise, he feels that he can even live directly in the universe without going back. Wherever there is sunshine, he is home. It takes more than 10 seconds to return to the mansion on the coast of Los Angeles. Leon pushed the door open and glanced at the time displayed on the electronic screen on the wall. It's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Tony won't be back until 7 or 8 o'clock. After finishing the strength test, I'd better eat dinner by myself first. He muttered to himself as he arranged his next plan. Then he walked back to his room and prepared to change into casual clothes for home. But after taking 2 steps, he stopped, with his right foot still hanging in the air. Tony, you came back so early today. Leon's ears moved, and he seemed to have heard a second heartbeat in the room just now. You must know that he keeps suppressing his super hearing at all times, and normally he can only hear the sounds he wants to hear. At this time, a heartbeat suddenly broke into his ears, which meant that the other party was very close to him. It was so close that even with suppressed super hearing, one could clearly distinguish the slow and regular rise and fall of a strong heart. After waiting for a few seconds, as expected, there was no response from Tony's voice. Although Tony usually didn't pay much attention to others when doing experiments, there was something different this time. Because this heartbeat was in Tony's room, but it didn't sound as strong as Tony's. Leon narrowed his eyes slightly, and instead of asking Jarvis, he directly turned on the clairvoyance. The world quickly becomes transparent, and layers of barriers gradually disappear. Leon's perspective seemed to turn into a ghost, lurking into Tony's room, passing through the huge and soft warm bed, and saw Natasha. Leon looked strange. Why is she here? She is still lurking under Tony's bed. Under Tony's 3-meter-wide bed, which was less than 30 centimeters high, there was actually a woman with a good figure hiding. Her burgundy short shoulder-length hair hung wetly on the ground, her eyes were closed, her hands hung by her sides, and she breathed long, like a sleeping beauty. But combined with the scene where she was lying on her back under the bed, it looked like a vegetative person had grown under Tony's bed. Leon was a little uneasy. As soon as I got home, I saw the famous Black Widow hiding under my brother's bed. This was so suffocating. Why don't you hide under his bed? It's really enviable. No, it's disgusting. Leon couldn't figure it out. Even if Tony blows up his truck and tells people in the military and political and business circles that he is Iron Man, that wouldn't mean that S.H.I.E.L.D. would directly send Natasha to hide under Tony's bed. Was he going to kidnap him, or was he going to get on the bed and fight Tony in the dark of night? Leon didn't remember female S.H.I.E.L.D. agents engaging in such low-level lurking. Jarvis, has anyone been here since I left today? After thinking about it, Leon chose to ask Jarvis first. No, Master Leon, after you left, I blocked all entrances. Everyone. The sewers and the like are also closed. In other words, has anyone blocked you today? I have kept running, and there is no record of being blocked. However, the sewer shouldn't be considered an entrance. Jarvis got stuck. Look, the artificial intelligence like Jarvis is confused. Who would be a good person to climb into the house from the sewer? However, look at the wet Natasha under Tony's bed. Where else could she have crawled in from the sewer? When Tony goes to bed tonight, he will probably be able to smell the body fragrance left by the beautiful woman. Leon whispered his blessing to Tony. Thinking about the smell of sewers, he laughed out loud. But letting Tony take a whiff was enough. Leon had no intention of letting Natasha stay under the bed. No matter what she wanted to do, since it was already done secretly, it obviously wasn't going to be a good thing. Jarvis asked. You mean, a woman sneaked into Mr. Stark's bedroom? Yes, and she is still under the bed with her eyes closed and concentrating. Leon touched his chin with interest. Let's see what this excellent agent plans to do. Jarvis, cooperate with me later. Okay, Master Leon. Leon put on an earphone, walked towards Tony's room, and opened the door directly. As soon as he entered the door, he pretended to look around and deliberately stepped hard. Jarvis, are you sure you detected a strong abnormal smell in Tony's room? It's impossible. He hasn't invited a beautiful woman home in the past few days. Why is there a strange smell in the room? Yes, Master, the air system has detected an abnormal odor factor. Jarvis cooperated. Impossible, unless Tony takes matters into his own hands to solve the physical problem. Where would the smell come from? And I don't think it smells like anything here. Sniff, sniff, yuck. Leon sniffed a few times, then suddenly backed away, holding on to the door frame and retching several times. This was not a planned disguise, but his super sense of smell was very sensitive to the rich, rotten smell in the room. Especially after he deliberately sniffed deeply several times, looking for peculiar smells. The sudden stench seemed to penetrate into his abdomen, causing his stomach to churn. What does this smell like? It smells like a dried salted fish that was swollen after being soaked in a swill bucket, and then marinated in a cucumber jar for 3 days and nights. Leon gritted his teeth and immediately suppressed his super sense of smell. Master Leon, Jarvis asked in a low voice in Leon's earphones, your acting skills are really good. If it weren't for the air system not detecting the abnormality, you almost deceived my judgment. Logic. No, I did smell a stink. The other party should have used deodorizing chemicals, but the smell still couldn't hide from my nose. Leon rubbed his nose and explained in a low voice. You continue to cooperate with me, he whispered. Then he covered his nose and walked to the bed and asked loudly, the smell is indeed a bit strong. What did Tony do? Jarvis, did you just say that the source of the smell is under the bed? Yes, the diffusion source of odor molecules is under the bed. Do you want me to operate the sweeping robot to clean it? Jarvis said through the external speaker. No. Leon squatted down and knelt on one knee. I suspect there is Tony's life-size doll down there. If you clean it up, he will be angry. So I just took it out and washed it. I can't believe how Tony could get rid of such a smelly thing. He held the edge of the bed with his left hand and reached under the bed with his right hand, pretending to take something out from underneath. Call out. Suddenly something unexpected happened. Leon's right hand was about to reach under the bed. A jet black soft whip was thrown out from the blind area of vision, and wrapped around Leon's arm 3 times, like a python strangling the enemy. The next moment, there was an insignificant force coming from the soft whip. Leon calculated it, and it was about 2.5 times Tony's arm strength. But for ordinary people, this can already be called a huge force. Leon couldn't help but feel surprised. Natasha used such great strength, coupled with the sudden force, it was enough to crack the bones of ordinary people's hands. If he attacks so harshly, he must be more than just lurking. Is it possible that S.H.I.E.L.D. really wants to take action against Tony? The distraction in Leon's heart dissipated a little, and now the testing had to continue for the time being. He pretended to be caught off guard and exclaimed, falling in the direction of the soft whip. "Ah!" he cried out in pain as he fell on his back. The next moment Natasha sprang out from under the bed like a poisonous snake emerging from its hole. Or rather it slipped out. She kicked hard on the bedpost, and used the reaction force to slide out against the ground, her legs wrapped around Leon's waist as if they were boneless. Then push your hands toward the ground and exert force on your waist. She actually held Leon between her legs and threw him in the air, then slammed him down to the ground. Bang! There was a heavy slamming sound, and Leon screamed in pain, and then realized that his posture actually hit the back of his head, so he immediately closed his eyes and began to faint. Ha! Natasha took a breath and took a casual look at Leon's shoulder, confirming that the target was unconscious. She is extremely confident in her skills. Her training in fighting since childhood made it impossible for her to be able to kill ordinary people instantly. Nice chest muscles. She also glanced at Leon's chest, patted it with her hands in surprise, and finally made a comment. "Madam, you have now violated Stark's private property and personal safety. Please stay away from Mr. Leone and leave here immediately, otherwise I will notify the police immediately," Jarvis threatened tacitly. "Oh, really?" Natasha pulled out a black tactical backpack from under the bed and took out ropes and firearms. She waved the gun and said, "If you call the police, this gun will be pointed at your young master." After saying that, she ignored Jarvis and shot several times to smash various electronic devices in the room. Then she turned over Leon and tied him up with ropes. She even checked Leon's vital signs and confirmed that he was just in a coma and not life-threatening. The headphones worn by Leon were also discovered and destroyed by her in the process. Then she stood up and pressed the communicator in her cochlea to start reporting. "General Dreykov, Natasha is reporting." After waiting for a few seconds and getting permission from the other party in the communication, she spoke again. "There was an accident in the mission. The target's younger brother, Leon Stark, discovered me using home artificial intelligence. Now, please change the plan. Instead of kidnapping Tony Stark, we will use Leon Stark to threaten the other party in order to obtain energy and armor technology." After a few seconds, a flat male voice came from the other end of the communication. "Agree to change the plan." "Copy that." Natasha's eyes were unwavering, with neither hatred nor joy. She took out the communication device from her ear and prepared to implement a new kidnapping plan. However, when she turned around, she saw Leon, who was supposed to be unconscious. He didn't know when he opened his eyes and looked straight at her. "It sounds like you're not working for S.H.I.E.L.D. now." Leon's expression was intriguing. "That would be interesting. You just mentioned General Dreykov. If I remember correctly, he should be the leader of the Red House, right?" In Natasha's horrified eyes, Leon easily broke free, and the rope tied to his body broke into several pieces and scattered on the ground. "That means you are still under the control of the Red House." Leon stood up and patted himself. "This is very wrong. At this time, you should be." Leon couldn't say anything else. The moment he lowered his head, Natasha launched an attack without hesitation, even though the person she faced was so strong that she could easily break the high-strength polyethylene rope. Her movements were so swift, like a spider hunting its prey. It was as if when she took action, the other party was already caught in her net and could not escape. Faced with Leon, who was obviously far stronger than her, Natasha's attack was extremely cruel and went straight to the vital point. Using speed to defeat strength is the skill she has used as a woman to defeat powerful enemies countless times. Her fists, elbows, and knees landed on Leon almost in no particular order, really using her body to the limit. However, this surprise strategy, which always works, encountered Waterloo this time. Natasha's face was full of shock. Leon, who looked to be only 17 or 18 years old, actually blocked all her attacks at a faster speed. Even using only one hand. After that hand lightly grasped her fist, she couldn't break free even if she tried her best. It was as if what grabbed her fist was not a hand, but a cold hydraulic clamp. Natasha's expression turned doubtful, but her rich combat experience allowed her to react immediately. She kicked off her feet and jumped, intending to step on Leon and break her joints to escape. Hey, don't do that, I don't want to accidentally tear you in half because of your resistance. Natasha's body was no better than a piece of paper to Leon. If he inadvertently loosens his control of power during physical contact, the next scene can only be described as horrific. While talking, Leon wrapped Natasha with a biological force field, fearing that an accident would destroy Tony's bedroom. But Natasha didn't know this. She just found out. Leon, who had always looked calm in the face of her violent attack, actually changed his expression at this moment. This made her doubtful. Is the other party afraid that she will get hurt? Who is the super agent who sneaked into the other party's house? Natasha couldn't understand, but the next moment, a huge force came along the arm. She was instantly pressed against the wall without any resistance. This time Natasha tried her best, but she couldn't move an inch. She tried yoga to escape, or tried to break off her arm to survive. She mutilated herself several times to seek opportunities to counterattack. But in front of the majestic force behind her, all her struggles were in vain, like an ant baring its teeth and claws in front of a giant. Slowly her eyes changed, becoming sad, desperate, and even relieved. Almost uncontrollably, she raised her right middle finger and bent it toward the inside of her wrist, trying to trigger a ring device on her wrist. What else do you want to do? Suddenly, the back of her neck was pinched, and a big hand pinched it gently, and she immediately lost consciousness. It seems that only in this way can our Black Widow sister be willing to be quiet for a while. Leon supported Natasha from behind, who had collapsed after being unconscious, picked her up in a different position, pushed the door open and walked out of Tony's bedroom. Master Leon, it's great that you're okay. Jarvis immediately expressed concern. All the electronic equipment in the bedroom was destroyed by Natasha, and he knew nothing about what happened inside. Come on, Jarvis, you know nothing will happen to me. It is my duty to care about your safety. Jarvis said, do you need me to call the police for you and hand over this intruder to the police? No need, I think this matter is not simple. There should be some secrets about this intruder. I have to take her down to study it. Leon said he was curious. Why did the Marvel story that was supposed to develop linearly have an accident with Black Widow? Is it possible that this world is not the main Marvel movie universe numbered 199,999, but a branch universe like, What If? But this is unlikely. After all, the plot characters he has seen so far all look almost the same as in the movie. He walked down the stairs with a guess. By the way, when Tony comes back, remember to tell him to order takeout. I should be in the lab tonight. Okay, Master Leon, Jarvis asked thoughtfully, do you want me to turn off the laboratory monitoring equipment for you? Leon's face darkened. Open it, leave it open. What do you think I'm going to do? It's up to you, Master. Jarvis's tone did not waver. Shut up, I just want to check her out. Leon carried Natasha into the laboratory, cleared the workbench with his right hand, and placed her on it. Then he took off his coat and put on a pair of white medical gloves. His movements were a bit unfamiliar, and he looked like an amateur anatomist, quite like a medical student who was learning anatomy for the first time. However, no matter how amateur he was, he became a top player after opening his clairvoyant eyes. The first is a full body examination. Let me take a look. Oh wow, she has a really good figure. As expected of Natasha, she has slim shoulders and big buttocks. She's very beautiful. Ahem, let's look at other parts first. Leon said that he is not a person who likes to take advantage. He got rid of distracting thoughts and quickly entered the state. His eyes penetrated Natasha's skin and saw the flesh and fascia wrapped in the skin. Well, it looks like there is nothing wrong with her body. There are no bombs or poison bags. Ha, there is a locator on her right leg. And on top of that, is this a self-destruct device on your wrist? Leon rubbed his chin. So she actually wanted to commit suicide using a self-destruct device just now. Suicide if the task cannot be completed. Such an extreme approach is obviously not Natasha's style. In the movie, Natasha Romanoff will sacrifice herself to save others, and she will also give up her life to protect her companions. But only when facing an enemy that she couldn't defeat. She wouldn't even think of giving up, let alone committing suicide. So, is it being controlled? I remember watching the Black Widow movie in a hurry in my previous life. Natasha's sister was chemically controlled by the Secret Service organization Red Room. But that's a timeline 10 years later. At this time, normally Natasha shouldn't even be in the Red Room. Leon's eyes moved to the top of Natasha's head. He passed through layers of blood vessel networks and brain tissue and examined them carefully, but could not find any problems. Is my clairvoyance level not high enough, or is her brain not under control? When encountering a problem that he didn't understand, Leon was eager to try. He quickly moved to Stark Industrial Park and brought in a series of special instruments such as microscopes, magnetoencephalogram detectors, and brain readers. A dozen huge machines surrounded the workbench. Leon geared up. Now it's time to test my learning results in the past few days. In the past few days after solving the 10 Commandments gang, he was not just basking in the sun. In my free time, I occasionally took the time to learn some biological knowledge. But I didn't expect that this knowledge would come in handy so quickly. Leon first defused the bombs and trackers on Natasha, and then began to extract cerebrospinal fluid and brain cells for research. The brain is functioning normally, the neuronodes are normal, synaptic transmission is normal. He checked one by one, his hands controlling the instruments on the workbench so fast that afterimages even appeared. During the observation of a cell slice, he only needed to take a glance at the entire image to record it, and then immediately draw an analysis conclusion. Sometimes when he encountered unclear details, he asked Jarvis to help search for relevant papers on the internet. During the research process, Leon's relevant knowledge reserves have been rapidly improved. He couldn't help but think silently in his heart. Thanks to Natasha Romanoff, this great female agent used her brain for free to help him learn while experimenting within an hour, and successfully grew into an excellent neurologist, chemist, and brain scientist. What a selfless dedication to science. Oh, I found it. At a certain moment, Leon, who was sitting in front of the microscope, shouted happily. He dared to say that when he was basking in the sun every day, he didn't feel as accomplished as he does now. There is nothing that can give people a greater sense of accomplishment than reaching the top of a field through their own efforts and solving a problem in a very short period of time. Master Leon, what did you find? Jarvis is a qualified admirer. I found the cause. Leon was slightly excited. There are no problems with Natasha's brain structure or organization. But in her cell fluid, I found a foreign chemical substance. Leon printed out a brain view. This chemical is affecting her basal ganglia, thereby affecting her consciousness. If I'm not wrong, she actually still has self-awareness, but it's just been divided into several parts by the drug. Some of them follow other people's orders, and some of them are her own thoughts. This kind of chaotic consciousness will allow her to maintain logical thinking, but lose emotional judgment, so that she can only listen to others. The person who researched this chemical substance is really a genius, but he is also a devil. Leon cleared the desktop again. The next step is to create targeted inhibitors. Maybe when she wakes up, we can have unexpected gains. For Leon, it is a very simple matter to know the cause of the disease and work backwards to find the solution, as long as the basic conditions permit. Now that it is clear that Natasha is indeed subject to mind control, and the method of control is a certain chemical substance, the rest of the process of reverse deriving the inhibitor formula seems to be a piece of cake. Leon used his supercomputer-like brain to quickly simulate various plans, and then handed it over to Jarvis for realistic simulation. It only took him 20 minutes to produce a tube of bright red reaction reagent. The success rate is 87%, right? Leon sucked up a tube of medicine with a syringe. Yes, according to the simulation, there is a 12% probability that the medicine will not work, a 1% probability that the medicine will conflict and cause the intruder to be brain dead. Jarvis said. But this is the limit of what can be achieved with current medical technology. Leon shrugged. He looked at Natasha and said, if conditions permit, we should actually even conduct a Phase 3 clinical randomized double-blind trial. That is the formal process of drug development. But looking at this patient's condition, I'm afraid we don't have the time to wait for us to find volunteers for experiments. On the workbench, Natasha was already awake and was desperately tearing at the rope around her body, trying to resist. Leon stood aside and pushed the syringe unmoved, and a stream of liquid gushes out from the sharp needle. Stop struggling, the injection is coming soon, be careful not to break the needle. Besides, you tied me up once, and I'll tie you up again now. It's even. Ms. Natasha must understand, right? He looked into Natasha's bloodshot and red eyes as she struggled, ignoring the fact that her mouth was sealed with tape. Very good, our patient acquiesced and she chose to receive treatment. But please be mentally prepared. He flicked the syringe to disperse the air bubbles inside. After all, I am Dr. Yeluzzi. Although the medicine may cause brain death, as long as it works, why bother? If there is an accident, we will call it survivor bias. In his previous life, Leon was actually a man who cherished words as much as gold. It's just that this life has been influenced by Tony Stark for more than 10 years. Although he is still the serious young man most of the time, at some critical moments, he will occasionally become as bad as Tony. The inhibitor has to be injected into the arm. Do you want to take off your clothes or tear off your sleeves? I understand, tear off the sleeves of the combat uniform, right? Leon tore off Natasha's sleeves, used his strength to control the patient so that she could not move, and applied alcohol to her white upper arms. Very good, Natasha, now is the final step. You still have 1 second to consider whether to give up the treatment. 1. The good time has come and you agreed to continue. Great. But time is running out now. If your family members sign it, you don't have to find someone. If something unexpected happens, we will directly cremate you and transport your ashes back to the Red House. Natasha's eyes suddenly widened and she moaned something. Huh, what are you talking about? No need for anesthesia. Don't worry, we don't have anesthesia prepared here. I'm starting the injection. Leon casually pricked Natasha's alcohol-smeared arm with a needle. The bright red medicine was quickly injected into the patient. Okay, it's over. It doesn't hurt, right? Our treatment session was incredibly short. You still need to press the injection site to prevent bruising, but it seems inconvenient for you, so I'll do it for you for the time being. Leon took out the empty syringe and pressed Natasha's arm with a cotton swab. However, after putting the syringe back on the tray that was held by the robot hand, he stopped talking. Instead, he looked at Natasha with a slightly serious expression. Leon's mental activities at this time were not as fancy as the words he spoke. He was just thinking, as one of the main characters in this world, Natasha should not be able to hit the 1% chance. Besides, the counter-action potion is already the best he can do at present. Even if top doctors were summoned from all over the world, they would at most be able to reduce the fatality rate of the drug by a few tenths of a percentage point, not much better. When the chemicals in Natasha's body were synthesized, the researchers probably never thought of formulating an antidote. What they want to create is a control potion that has no solution. Even more than the life of the person being controlled, they care more about the fact that the potion cannot be cracked. Those chemicals are hidden in the cell fluid of Natasha's brain cells, and their removal means brain cell death. It also means that the brain is damaged and the person being controlled is in danger of death. Therefore, the fact that Leon created the inhibitor is a miracle. As for the fatality rate of another 1 percentage point, it is completely harmless. It seems that the inhibitory potion has taken effect. Leon took off his gloves, ran through the disinfectant, then took the disinfectant cotton towel handed over by Ben, and wiped his hands clean. He looked at Natasha, whose expression quickly calmed down, and prayed silently for her for a second. Jarvis, do you think that if she really steps on the 1% chance of brain death, should she be considered lucky or unlucky? While waiting for the results, Leon had an idea. From a probability perspective, a 1% chance of hitting the target should be considered very lucky. Jarvis answered seriously, but judging from the results, if you end up with the smallest chance of death, this is very unfortunate. Your views are really objective. Leon complained, but humans don't think like you do. When a disaster happens to you, no matter how small the chance is, it becomes a 100% nightmare. It is an absolute misfortune. It turns out that this is human thinking. Jarvis wrote it down. I will try to think like this in the future, Master Leon. That's not necessary. Mechanical thinking is your advantage. Nowadays, many little girls like this one. Oh, Natasha wakes up. Leon saw Natasha's silky eyelashes trembling slightly, and immediately walked to the tool table and took a closer look. Soon, Natasha opened her eyes, her amber pupils were dazed and her expression was distracted. But Leon laughed instead. That's the look in his eyes, like a fool. Miss Natasha, congratulations on your successful operation. The blank look on her face meant that Natasha's brain was out of control of chemicals. All her scattered consciousnesses gradually began to reunify into one. However, it seems that this integration process will take some time. Leon observed Natasha's changes and easily pulled off the rope on her body and the tape on her mouth. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. It's different from Leon's joy. As soon as Natasha opened her eyes, she saw an extremely close face, looking left and right in front of her. Her pupils shrank suddenly, and her body moved reflexively. Having lost her restraints, she just freed her hands and feet. She wrapped her legs around Leon's strong waist using juggling skills, and when she exerted force on her arms, her whole body rotated behind him with Leon as the axis, and she used a naked choke. This is the physical memory brought about by more than 10 years of agent training and combat experience. After finishing the naked choke, she immediately applied force reflexively. However, Leon, who was supposed to be suffocated, did not respond. Her arm seemed to be stuck on a diamond. Natasha was stunned for a moment, and the next moment fragmentary memories came to her mind. Her expression suddenly became dull and her eyes lost focus. It wasn't until Leon reached out to lift Natasha up and put her on the workbench that she came back to her senses. You saved me. Natasha looked at Leon in front of her with a gradually complicated expression. Her hands were resting on her sides and she slowly lowered her head. What have I done? I thought I would be controlled by the Red House for the rest of my life, but unexpectedly, by mistake, I was saved in the hands of the mission target. At this moment when she regained consciousness, countless memories came to her mind. She had mixed feelings, including regret and hatred, but mostly anxiety. You look like you're recovering well, Leon said. Natasha woke up when she heard this. She sat on the workbench, suddenly at a loss. Thank you very much. No, I'm sorry, I just did it unintentionally, it was subconscious, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, you have injured. Chapter 31. Natasha's words were a little messy. It can be seen that her mood swings are very unstable after she has just recovered her memory. Especially when Leon had just saved her, she took action ungratefully. This brought back some deeply hidden memories in her, making her feel ashamed and uneasy. Don't mind. Leon waved his hand indifferently, it was an unintentional mistake. Besides, you can't hurt me. Natasha clasped her hands and suddenly remembered that she had been subdued by the man in front of her before without any power to fight back. She will probably never forget that kind of power that crushes all skills. She subconsciously looked around with her peripheral vision, trying to calm down. Thank you. Natasha glanced at Leon's body without any trace, but shook her head and thanked her again. Thank you for saving me, and thank you for not minding my offense just now. Leon was about to say something, but Natasha kept talking. Maybe this is just a piece of cake for you, but it means a lot to me. Natasha looked very sincere. She got off the workbench and looked at Leon. You gave me a second chance at life, Mr. Stark. And it's not just me. Natasha's expression became solemn. There are other widows, we all owe you our lives. Agents bred by the Red House are called widows. The best among the widows, the one who can break the previous record, is named the Black Widow. It is one of the most ruthless and venomous spiders in the world. The same is true for the agent who was given this title. There is no way to repay life-saving kindness. If you need help with anything in the future, just ask. Natasha said seriously, I will do my best. She gently touched Leon's cheek with her hand, and breathed warm breath on the strong jawline. But please forgive me for having to leave now. Her expression became tangled, reluctant and extremely painful. If you disconnect from the Red House for too long, they will come after you. I can't drag you down. others need me to save them too. Natasha made a decisive move, and as soon as she woke up and regained consciousness, she began to plan revenge on the Red House. Determination flashed in her eyes, and she suddenly stood on tiptoe and kissed the side of Leon's face gently. "Thank you, Leon." Her voice was so gentle, like cotton wool being blown by the wind, and like saying goodbye to her lover with full love. After the kiss, she slowly retreated step by step, looking at Leon steadily with her jade-like eyes. It's like the princess in the fairy tale who was kissed from her sleep by the prince, but had to face the evil mother alone. After retreating to a distance of 5 meters, she turned around sharply, leaving a lonely figure behind. The back view is so lonely and resolute, vividly highlighting Natasha's psychological characteristics of being willing to sacrifice heroically for her companions and running into the sea of fire for her savior. Leon looked at Natasha and touched the side of his face. His reflection on the laboratory glass seemed stunned and dazed, like a young boy who suddenly fell in love. "Wait, Natasha," he called suddenly. Natasha's determined back paused, and she turned her head slightly, leaving behind a half-sad profile. "Sorry, Leon, I have to go." "No, I mean, we're not that familiar yet, so it's quite appropriate for you to call me Mr. Stark." Leon sighed and pinched his nose. Then he whispered, "The smell of rotten fish is really strong." At this moment Natasha was completely frozen, standing in place like a wooden figure. It took her a few seconds before she turned around, with a hesitant look on her face. "Call you, Mr. Stark." It seemed like she didn't hear Leon's complaints about her body odor. "That's right." Leon leaned against the workbench. "Natasha Romanoff, born in 1984, is the best black widow bred by the Red House. She has dozens of alternate identities around the world and is a single soldier. Master of psychological warfare. Facing one of the world's top agents like you, I was really flattered to be called by my first name and kissed goodbye. I have to say it's a really good charm technique." Leon joked. "Just a little bit away, I will rush up to hug you, and then say that I will accompany you through the mountains of swords and seas of fire ahead." Natasha's eyes changed. She realized that her little thoughts had been read. The hesitant expression gradually calmed down. "Wow, I didn't expect that the second young Master Stark, the most mediocre in the information, would be so secretive. Are you a CIA agent? Please, this is the internet age. I have what you call home artificial intelligence. A lot of information is easy to collect. Also, what does it mean to be the most mediocre? I was admitted to Columbia University." Leon paused and spread his hands. "Look, Natasha, I know your past. And I'm not a rich boy who still fantasizes about fairy tales when he's grown up. So playing hard to get is really unnecessary. Although you seem to be just acting casually without any intention. But, can the way we talk be simpler?" Leon stood up, waved to Ben, and ordered 2 cups of coffee. He handed the coffee to Natasha. "Drink something hot. When was the last time you drank coffee consciously? Don't tell me it was 10 years ago." "Ha." Natasha didn't show any embarrassment, and took the coffee with a natural smile. "Thank you, the last time I drank coffee like this was a year and a half ago." Leon raised his eyebrows. "So you were completely controlled by the Red House more than a year ago. You seem to know a lot, Master Leon." Natasha walked up to Leon, leaned against the workbench with him, and looked at him with her head half raised, looking petite and soft. She is using little tricks to seduce Leon again. Don't be like this. Is it a habit of yours to seduce others to obtain information? Leon pointed to the coffee cup. If you have any questions, you can ask directly. This can save a lot of testing costs. Natasha is indeed a stunner among stunners. Now in her mid-20s, her every move is naturally charming, and her every move and smile can captivate people. However, Leon had just seen Natasha's blood-viscous internal organs and red and white brain, and smelled the smell of her getting out of the sewer. Therefore, he does not have that kind of whimsical desire in a short period of time. I didn't expect that as the younger brother of the most famous playboy in the United States, Master Leon is still a gentleman. Natasha put away her charming smile and looked much more serious. As a psychological master, what she knows best is to give in to others. Leon's current pursuit is to exchange information efficiently, and she is happy with this. That's not necessarily true. It's just that the time is wrong now. You can try it on another occasion next time. I will definitely be fooled. Leon took 2 sips of coffee and said, by the way, don't play out the scene of the ignorant girl's farewell just now. Only the young and rich second generation will be tempted by that kind of story. I suggest that when you attack me, you just wear black stockings. More effective. Good suggestion, I will definitely try it next time. Natasha nodded. So, Mr. Stark, why do you know so much information about me? She added. Don't tell me that it was found by artificial intelligence. Most of the information is confidential on paper and is not accessible online. So that's it. Leon crossed his hands and said, I'm sorry, I can't comment on this matter. It's a secret. Natasha tilted her head. Is this what you call a direct question? Just because you ask questions doesn't mean I want to answer them. Leon answered the question incorrectly. Before you ask me, I also want to ask, was that your attitude towards your savior just now? He raised his finger. First you woke up and attacked me. Oh, that was an accident. You did sincerely thank me and apologize afterwards. But after remembering the memory of fighting me before, you immediately started to seduce me again. Then you want me to offer to help and deal with the Red House with you, right? The most outrageous thing is that after you turned around, you secretly observed my reaction from the reflection in the glass. Why, I just saved you, and you just said you would thank me, and then you turned around and wanted to drag me into the dragon's pond and the tiger's den. Leon patted his thigh. The contrast between your before and after is so great that it almost makes me feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I apologize. Natasha raised her hands. I apologize again. It's my fault for treating you as an ordinary rich second generation and trying to take advantage of you. It's also my fault for trying to involve you. I'm sorry, I just woke up and wanted to find an ally who would make me feel safe. Natasha's face showed a bit of pity. After all, you are so strong and a genius with high IQ. With your help, I have a greater chance of winning. But I promise, if you really chose to help me just now, I will definitely tell you all the real information. Although you don't seem to need it. And my previous promise is true. Whenever you encounter trouble in the future, you can come to me for any request, provided that I am still alive. Leon touched his chin. Is it okay to ask you to do some indescribable things? Yes, as long as it's you, I can accept it. Natasha's eyes became extremely firm after a brief tangle. She was serious. Leon realized that Natasha was not joking, and instead stopped smiling. Okay, there is no need to be so serious. I was just joking. I also take back the disrespectful words I just said. He waved to Benben again. Shall Benben, come and give this lady some more coffee? Now it was Natasha's turn to be surprised. Are you apologizing to me? This, to be honest, you are not at all what I thought. Apologize. No, what did you misunderstand? I'm not apologizing, I just maintain my self-cultivation, at least I won't joke about that kind of thing openly. Leon defended. There was doubt in Natasha's eyes. You actually said that. I mean, you are very different, you don't look like a Stark at all. Maybe because I had another education besides Stark. Leon raised his glass and touched it with Natasha, but it's useless no matter how much you praise me. You invaded here and attacked me. I saved you regardless of past suspicions, but you ended up with evil intentions. Just a verbal apology is not enough. You were right. Natasha smiled and drank the hot coffee, but I sincerely praise you. This is the first time I have heard those words just now. It sounds very cultivated indeed. Thank you for the compliment. This is part of my packaging of my own image. Leon shrugged. Such packaging must be very attractive to little girls. Natasha's eyebrows gradually arched. Maybe, then, should we talk about you and the problem of the Red House? Leon put down the coffee cup. What do you want to talk about? Natasha no longer leaned on the workbench. If this is the compensation you want, I will tell you everything. I just have one question. How did you get controlled by the Red House a year and a half ago? Leon asked the question that he had been struggling with for a long time. He still thinks about it. After all, this is related to his judgment of the universe in which he lives. This was also the purpose of his treatment of Natasha. How was I controlled? Natasha held the coffee cup, looking a little dazed and struggling. To her, that seemed like a long time ago. During the time she was controlled, she committed too many bloody crimes. In comparison, even those days when she could only act with her own will seemed much better. Asking her to recount her experience at that time was, to her, tantamount to tearing the scars from the inside out. It would be better to charge directly into the battle in a hail of bullets. But after struggling with her expression, she slowly spoke. I was trained and transformed in the Red House when I was a child. They brainwash all girls. It's just that I persisted in the brainwashing and retained my own will. So when I found the opportunity, I tried to rebel, and then, I failed. Natasha's eyes were so empty. She looked at the shaking coffee in the cup, but her eyes seemed to have traveled to the past. In order to prevent similar situations from happening again, they no longer just brainwash the girls, but start using chemicals to control us. The process is like this. Natasha said very briefly, as if to say that to put an elephant into the refrigerator, you only need to open the refrigerator and put the elephant in again. Leon grasped the key point. You are so capable, why did the rebellion fail? In the original world line, Natasha should have met Hawkeye around 2006, then launched an attack on the leader of the Red Room in Budapest, the capital of Hungary, and finally successfully defected to join S.H.I.E.L.D. The current situation is exactly the opposite. You can't imagine the power of the Red House. Widows are all over the world. It's impossible for an individual to resist. Natasha's shoulders drooped as if they had lost their support. Almost 2 years ago, I was attacked by S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Hawkeye. It was a good opportunity. I tried to get in touch with S.H.I.E.L.D. through him. It's just, she suddenly raised her head and glanced at Leon. Speaking of which, it has something to do with you. In 2006, your Stark company released a generation-changing electronic product. Red House made technological inferences from it and used complementary technologies to update the internal smart devices. Natasha tilted her head. So when I contacted Hawkeye, I was monitored the whole time, but I didn't know anything about it. At that time, my communication equipment only had ordinary anti-eavesdropping functions. How could we have expected that Red House's communication technology would make an explosive leap in just a few months? Leon's mouth twitched. The sentimental widow was caught because she fell behind. Civilian technology in the Marvel world lags far behind military technology. In 2006, Tony got his inspiration and used many technologies that were previously only used in military industry to create digital equipment. During that time, Stark Group's new product launches could be said to be once a day. For one consecutive month, Tony advanced the technology of civilian digital equipment that was lagging far behind for some reason in the world by at least 10 years. As if overnight, the world has switched from flip phones to smartphones. Even holographic projections are beginning to appear on the market. Leon still remembered that Obadiah complained at that time, saying that Tony was fishing in the lake, and good skills should be released bit by bit in order to harvest more leaks. Well, modern technology is like this, it explodes when it says it will. It's weird. He took a sip of coffee to hide his embarrassment. Natasha glanced at him resentfully. If Stark Electronic Technology Company could be established half a year later, I might be able to successfully break away from or even destroy the Red House. You're right. Leon continued to drink coffee. Although it makes no sense, it's all Tony's fault for building such a subsidiary. It turns out there is something wrong with the world. It was the flapping wings of his butterfly that blew up a tornado in Hungary. The butterfly effect can actually affect the timeline. Leon was a little speechless, and he didn't know why the timeline had changed so much, but no one had come to the door yet. Even if the Time Management Bureau doesn't come, GUE won't come either. This left him very confused. However, for now, this world should still be the movie universe he is familiar with. All we can say is that everything is fine in the comic book universe. What happened next? He continued to ask. After my defection plan was exposed, I was quickly besieged by other widows and taken back to the Red House. After being imprisoned for half a year, the Red House used chemicals to control me. I have no choice at all. For more than a year, although I still retain my own thoughts, I have many consciousnesses and I don't know which part is myself. Natasha said, quietly turning her cheek and wiping her face with her back to Leon. In more than 10 months, more people have died by my hands than in the past 10 years. She continued, there are little boys who can't walk, there are pregnant mothers, and there are powerful people. To this day, my hands are stained with blood. Natasha lowered her head, making it impossible to see her expression clearly. Leon subconsciously wanted to say some words of comfort. But it was clear that what Natasha needed was not comfort. Her heart is stronger than most people. But the more this happened, the more painful it became when she was condemned by her inner conscience. In fact, if it weren't for Leon's request for this information as compensation for Natasha, there was no way Natasha would tell her past. Even in the movie, she treats her fellow Avengers as family. She also never mentioned her experience in the Red Room. That was the secret wound in her heart, compared to tearing open these dusty wounds. In fact, she would rather that the compensation proposed by Leon was tit for tat, even if her hands and feet were broken. Then what are you going to do next? Leon waved to Benben to refill Natasha's coffee. Thank you. Natasha thanked Benben, and then looked at Leon. If possible, I would like your help. I don't want to involve you in this endless war, but I would like to ask you to help me create some inhibitors. Natasha said with anxiety, or a formula that allows me to save other people. I will definitely find a way to compensate you for your efforts. Leon touched his chin. The inhibitor thing is very simple, but you seem to be planning to rescue a group of widows first and gather enough manpower before declaring war on the Red House. Frankly speaking, he wished the Red House would be troubled. After all, Tony had just exposed his steel armor, and the other party dared to send the Black Widow to sneak into the house to kidnap him. What if Tony held a press conference tomorrow to announce to the world that he was Iron Man? The Red House didn't know what else to do. Regarding this kind of force that is seeking death, Leon's choice is not to let it see the sun of tomorrow. However, it just so happened that what Natasha wanted to do was also destroy the Red House, so it coincided with this, so Leon didn't mind going along with it. Natasha stood up straight. Yes, this is my plan, Mr. Stark, please believe me, I will definitely. Just call me Leon. You said so many things from your heart, we should be considered friends. Leon interrupted. Natasha paused and nodded. Leon. Well, listen to me first. Leon tapped his fingers on the table. Your idea is great, but it's not easy to implement. He said, first you lose contact, and then the other widows will lose contact one after another after you start taking action. The Red House will soon react, and then you will be in a very bad situation. Natasha shook her head slowly. I know, but I have to do it, this is my responsibility. Responsibility. Leon thought for a while. You put it like that, I have an idea, a win-win, no, a win-win idea for three. What's the idea? Natasha was stunned. Leon began to pack up the items on the workbench and prepared to make a batch of inhibitors. I'll help you solve the Red House. How about you take your companions to work for me and serve me? No one can refuse a group of female agents with extraordinary skills, who can fly planes and enter kitchens, to serve themselves all over the world. I can get the services of a group of top agents, you can destroy the Red House, and the other widows can escape control and find new homes, a win-win-win situation. As for the win-win mentioned at the beginning, Leon himself not only achieved the goal of destroying the Red House, but also gained a group of subordinates by the way. He won twice. What do you think of my proposal? As he spoke casually, Leon kept moving his hands. His hands left an afterimage on the workbench, but each operation was extremely precise, and the ratio of each milliliter of reagents was perfect. Natasha watched in amazement. How are you going to solve the Red House? Do not know why. She didn't have any doubt about Leon's words. From the bottom of my heart, I feel that as long as the other person is willing, it would definitely destroy the Red House that made her tremble. So you agree? Leon asked without looking back. Natasha was silent for a few seconds. I agree. After destroying the Red House, I will cooperate with you to persuade other widows to join. But I can't guarantee that they can agree. As for me, I am yours now. Natasha's crispness made Leon stop what he was doing. Are you serious? He turned around slightly in shock. You don't even want to ask what I want you to do. What is this inexplicable trust? Generally speaking, shouldn't we make a three-part agreement with him after careful consideration so that he cannot order the widows to do anything that violates morality? Leon had to admit that Natasha had a good sense of proportion. Natasha shook her head. believe me, as long as you can destroy the Red House, they will be willing to do anything for you. What about you? Leon asked. I said from the beginning, I owe you a life. Natasha put her hands on the table, approached Leon and looked into his eyes. I will do whatever you ask me to do. If I can't do it, I will have to give my life back to you. Her breath sprayed on Leon's face. Natasha's charming eyes are as silky as silk, and she really grasps the man's desire to conquer. What she meant clearly was that she would not do anything against her will. But when it came to her mouth, it was euphemistically said that if she couldn't do it, she would pay with her life. Even if Leon heard such words of completely entrusting his life, he might not be able to help but feel moved. Except this time, obviously. Oh, you smell like this. Don't get so close. I've been telling you before that you can use the bathroom in my room upstairs as you like. Now go and clean it up for me. Leon pinched his nose with a look of disgust on his face. Stay away from Natasha. Although it suppresses part of the super sense of smell. But as he got closer, Natasha's faint sewer smell still made him feel quite uncomfortable. My taste. Natasha looked dull, as if she had been struck by lightning. Leon didn't explain anything and directly ordered Dai to see off the guests. Dada, push her out and don't let her in until she's washed. Anyway, it's useless for her to stay here while I'm making the inhibitor. Obediently, he rolled the pulley under his feet, put his mechanical arm on Natasha's back, and pushed her out. Natasha was still in a daze until she walked into the bathroom in Leon's room. This was the first time that when she used her charm, she was disliked for being too stinky. Do I really stink? She raised her hand and smelled her armpits. No, the chemical deodorant has obviously covered up the smell of the sewer. Natasha doubtfully took off her combat uniform and clicked on the electronic screen on the wall to release hot water. Well, I haven't had a hot bath like this for a long time. It's so comfortable. Could it be that Leon actually cares about me? Her red lips raised a smile. So he is still an arrogant little brother. After all, he is only 17 or 18 years old. It looks like you're ready. That's just right. I've also prepared enough inhibitors here. An hour and a half later, Natasha and Leon met in the living room. At this time, the huge sun disk had dropped to the sea level, the living room of Stark's mansion was orange, and the shadows of all the furniture were stretched very long. Natasha was still wearing the black combat uniform. However, after she took a bath and washed and dried the combat suit with a smart cleaning machine, Leon was finally able to face her image. Natasha's figure is not tall, but she is at her peak. She is exquisite, curvy and full of feminine charm. However, the most attractive thing is her temperament and her amber eyes. Every look in those eyes seems to hide 1,000 words and express thousands of emotions. Leon was thinking as he looked at her. No wonder Natasha always goes on missions without covering her face. Her eyes are really so recognizable, even if the whole body is covered tightly. But anyone who saw her knew it was her when they saw those eyes. We're ready, so what's our plan? Why do you sound like you're going to attack the Red House right away? Natasha looked at Leon. And why are you wearing a windbreaker? Could it be that your steel armor is hidden inside? Wait a minute, am I right? As Tony Stark's younger brother, it's not surprising that Leon would have a steel suit called Natasha. You are wearing battle armor. Are you going to take me to overthrow the Red House now? Natasha asked a series of questions. She was a little excited and hesitant at the same time. In the evaluation system of Red House, the most valuable thing about steel armor is actually the technology on it. As for the armor itself, at most it only has the combat power of a flying formation. What the Red House is most indispensable for is flight formations. Should we make a plan first? Natasha wanted to persuade Leon to calm down. Liang shook his head and put the box containing the inhibitor on the ground. The plan is to find the Red House and kill all the members of the organization. He held the collar of his windbreaker with both hands, but you guessed part of it right just now. I do intend to take you directly to the Red House. It's just that I'm not going in steel armor. After saying that, Leon pulled his hands, pulled open the collar and threw the windbreaker on the sofa. Not wearing steel armor. It's not that I don't believe you, Leon. Maybe you don't know much about the Red House. I think we can. WTF. Natasha hesitated and wanted to persuade her again. As a result, The next moment, she saw Leon pulling open his collar to reveal the S-shaped logo on his chest, and she suddenly cursed. "You are Superman." Natasha was surprised and happy. It felt like a big cake suddenly fell from the sky and covered her face with cream. "Are you really Superman?" She was unsure about asking again, but her eyes were already full of energy, as beautiful as crystal. "Certainly." Leon spread his hands, and Natasha immediately stepped forward to hold his chest muscles, and touched every hard muscle. "My God, it feels like an ancient Greek sculpture." She couldn't help but exclaim, "No wonder you are so strong, no wonder your chest muscles are so beautiful." "So you are Superman." Natasha felt no pressure at all now. She was suddenly very happy, like a little girl entering Disneyland for the first time. Leon was the big, soft Mickey doll in her hands. This is Superman. As the top agent of the Red Room, how could Natasha not know about this internet celebrity who has become globally famous in recent days? Even the superpowers have to worry about his power, and it's not easy to deal with the little red house. At this moment, Natasha felt that she was right to come and invade the Stark mansion today. Ahem, just stop touching her. Are you ready? Let's go when we are ready. Leon interrupted Natasha's intrusive movements with a slight cough. Natasha reluctantly took back her hand and nodded solemnly, "Let's go." At this time, the orange sunshine in the evening shines in from the floor-to-ceiling windows. The sun fell on Leon. "Extend his shadow to the farthest wall in the room." Natasha stood in the shadow, and Leon in her eyes seemed to be covered with a golden shimmer. The high wind blew Natasha's red hair, but it didn't make her feel cold. She clasped Leon's palm tightly and looked at the fish-like lights below. "It's amazing, you just took me flying." She reached out to touch the clouds surrounding the two of them, and the mist passed between her fingers. In the Stark mansion, after Leon made sure Natasha was ready, he grabbed her hand and jumped into the sky and flew into the clouds. The kind of acceleration that breaks through the speed of sound in 1 second and breaks the sound barrier. Even with Natasha's calmness, she couldn't help but be frightened and screamed again and again. In the past 24 years, she has experienced the most arduous training, flown the fastest plane, pretended to be the most luxurious noble, and can be said to have seen most of the scenery in the world. But this was her first time to experience supersonic flight without protection. "This place is at least 1,000 meters above the ground. Why can I still breathe normally, speak normally, and not be injured by the high-speed wind?" She looked around. Everything was novel. "Because I released the biological force field." Leon did not explain in detail. He looked up at the sky and said, "The height here is too low. It will easily affect the environment when the speed increases. We have to fly higher." "How high did it fly?" Natasha was surprised. "You'll know later." Leon took Natasha and accelerated again, rushing into the sky. "Oh." Natasha quickly adapted. She even let out a loud shout when she passed through the clouds and met the strong wind, just like riding a roller coaster in an amusement park. The two of them ascended to the stratosphere. At this time, the moonlight has emerged. Below the two of them were layers of flat clouds. The moonlight reflects and dances on the surface of the clouds, adding a bluish-white color to the bottom of the dark stratosphere. Natasha looked down at the clouds under the moon. The boundless blue-white sea of clouds leads all the way to the sky, with no end and no reference to find the direction. She suddenly remembered. In the past, when she was flying a fighter jet in the stratosphere, she could also use satellite positioning to determine the direction and position. But flying with the body has no navigation. "Leon, do you know where you are going to fly?" Natasha turned and asked Leon loudly. Leon was stunned for a moment and looked at her strangely. "Of course I know. Why, do you want to show me the way and tell me where the red house is?" Natasha looked at Leon, silent for a few seconds, and found a question again. "If I say I don't know the location of the red house, can you find it? You were trained there, controlled, and then handed over the task, but you didn't know where it was." Leon's eyes became even weirder. Natasha looked innocent. As an intelligence agency left over from the 1990s, the Red Room cannot be known to the world. What it can rely on to maintain its operation is the girls who have been controlled and raised since childhood. To ensure privacy and security. Every time we return from a mission, we are sedated. So, I really don't know where it is. But maybe someone knows. Natasha fell into memories. I once had an adoptive father who was a second-generation Red Guardian, similar to the Soviet Union's own Captain America. He must know something. Let's go find him. No need. Leon interrupted Natasha. For things like reuniting with your adoptive parents, it's better to wait until you are free to do it on your own. Otherwise, if I were an outsider in there, how could you cry and talk to them about your innermost feelings? It was not difficult for him to find the red house, so there was no need to look for directions. Besides, Natasha's adoptive father Alexei is a funny person in the movie. In addition to providing a family home for Natasha and her sister Yelena, this adoptive father has no second role. He knew nothing about the situation in the red house. Then how do you plan to find the red house? Use your artificial intelligence butler to help, the one named Jarvis, Natasha asked. No, I use my eyes and ears to find it. Leon's sight traveled halfway around the world and had already locked onto the red house. Natasha was briefly confused and then opened her eyes wide. Super hearing and supervision. You even have these two abilities. Didn't you guess that my abilities would be the same as Superman's when you saw me wearing a Superman uniform? Leon asked. Many people would guess this, but it's so incredible that no one wants to believe it. Natasha looked at Leon carefully again. So you really are like Superman. Could it be that you are a Kryptonian? Or are you a fan of Superman who gave yourself such power through experiments? She even analyzed. The previous generation of Stark participated in the research of the super soldier serum, so it seems reasonable for the current generation of Stark to develop the Superman serum. Your reasonable range is the difference between the sky and the ground. Leon complained. Then how did you become Superman? Natasha's eyes were full of curiosity. There is nothing abnormal about your blood test records in the information. You will have a chance to know in the future. Leon smiled mysteriously. Suddenly his ears twitched and his eyes focused. Hold on tight, I can already hear your boss getting angry in the red room because he can't contact you. We have to speed up. Are you going to send me back before he gets angry? Natasha pursed her lips and snickered. He will definitely thank you. That's perfect. I'm already looking forward to his expression now. Leon suddenly accelerated, and the huge air pressure tore the sky apart, pushing away the sea of clouds. Natasha felt all this with surprise. Under the cover of the biological force field, the wind pressure that was enough to cut through steel blew onto her face, but it became as warm as the spring breeze. She felt like she was wearing a VR device and experiencing the flight of an intercontinental missile. Vision and touch are completely separated. God, this is amazing. She sighed again. The speed of the two quickly exceeded Mach 50, and they were crossing an altitude of more than 10 kilometers every second. There are only clouds and thin air in the stratosphere, without any reference. But Natasha soon discovered that the North Star in the starry sky was constantly approaching her head. We are going to the North Pole. The red house is in the Arctic Circle, she suddenly said. The closer you get to the North Pole, the closer the North Star will be directly overhead. To be precise, it's over the Arctic Ocean. We're almost there. Leon took Natasha and began to slow down and dive. About to arrive. Hearing this, Natasha felt nervous as she looked at the rapidly approaching clouds. She has never seen the whole red house in all these years, and this building will always be mysterious in her heart. It was like a high wall, cutting off her world, representing death and indifference. But now she is finally going to see it. With the magic weapon descended from the sky, Leon is her biggest reliance. She knew that in the face of Superman's power, the Red Room was unable to resist, and today was destined to be the day that her past life came to an end. But the more she understood this, the more nervous she became. What was on her mind was not the thrill of revenge by destroying the Red House. In her heart, it was actually just a mission, something she had to do, and she was willing to die for it. But now that this mission is about to be completed, it seems that her life will have no other meaning except the heavy blood debt. At this moment Natasha was like a puppy about to be sent out of a pet shop. She no longer has to be locked in a cage all day long, looking at the travelers coming and going, with hope in her eyes. She will be free, but she will also face a world she has never seen before. From now on, she can feel and touch the afternoon sun and the greenery of summer. But her eyes, which had not seen light for a long time, could not see the daytime, and her muddy hands did not dare to touch the green grass. It's there. We're here. Leon's voice pulled Natasha out of her thoughts. Her vision shifted, and countless clouds and fog were passing by the two of them. Dark clouds pile up in layers at night, wrapping everything around. Natasha looked around and saw black clouds coming towards her. Leon's speed was too fast, but the movement was too small, so small that it seemed to blend into the clouds. But soon, the clouds and fog suddenly became thinner. Natasha had a premonition in her heart and looked at it intently. First, a steel runway hundreds of meters long tore through the sea of clouds. Then, the huge thing connected to the runway came out of the clouds. The dark clouds were suddenly lit up. It was a towering fortress in the air. An aircraft carrier shaped like a tower, with 3 floors, 4 landing strips for fighter planes on each floor, and a total of 12 runways. The light of the fortress penetrated most of the surrounding clouds. It is hiding here, like a pearl forgotten by the world. So this is the Red House, it's here. Natasha stared blankly, her eyes reflecting the bright spots of the fortress. Leon couldn't help but stop and look at it. It's really spectacular, but its anti-gravity system looks like just a few large fans. Where did this combination of originality and futurity come from? The designer is really smart. And this kind of air unit that doesn't have an energy defense system at first glance is just a living target, isn't it? He complained again. I didn't even forget to mention my brother, but Tony should like this thing. It looks very steely and has a flashy beauty. Tony likes this style the best. Natasha's brewing emotions were suddenly interrupted by this string of complaints. She looked at Leon speechlessly. You really know your brother? Of course, so I have to change my strategy. Leon climbed higher and took in the entire fortress. This fortress cannot be destroyed. As long as it is renovated, it can be used as Tony's 40th birthday present. Wow, you all give such expensive things as birthday gifts. Natasha felt as if there was something stuck in her chest that she couldn't express. While using his clairvoyant eyes to note the location of everyone in the fortress, Leon said, It's not always like this, but he gave me a spaceship on my 18th birthday, so it couldn't be too bad of a return gift. Natasha couldn't help but tilt her upper body back. At this moment, it seemed as if countless knives were piled up and hit her in the face. Then you brothers are quite modern, she said her thoughts dryly. Other rich second generations are still giving away luxury cars and yachts. Fortunately for these brothers, the Sky Fortress and spaceship have been sent up. They are going to fly out of the Earth and into space. Okay, that's it. Leon took a few seconds to write down everyone's location. He fell silently with Natasha, landing as lightly as raindrops on the top runway. Take these and follow me. Leon handed the box containing the inhibitor to Natasha. I will knock everyone out. If you follow up, you can use inhibitors if you think they are suitable. If they are not suitable, you can kill them with a knife. Any questions? Natasha shook her head. No. She knows that she is just a pendant, and it is enough to be able to play support and earn some money. Okay, I'll wait for you in the central control room. Leon flew up, and the neon lights on the runway illuminated half of his body red. He flew higher and higher, quickly attracting attention. A shrill siren sounded inside the fort. Soldiers patrolling the deck quickly gathered and prepared to fire. Natasha looked around, looking for suitable opportunities, intending to help Leon relieve the pressure. But before she could take action, Leon, who was filled with infrared light spots from the gun, took the lead and made a move. Natasha felt her eyes blurred, and the scene she saw suddenly seemed to have several more lines surrounding the fortress. She squeezed her eyes shut. When I opened it again, those lines disappeared. Leon is still where he is, but the infrared light spots on his body have all been extinguished. I'll go in first, hurry up, don't keep me waiting too long. Leon waved at her, and then pierced the inside of the fortress like a sharp arrow. Natasha was still a little stunned when suddenly she heard the sound of bodies falling to the ground one after another. Her eyes widened and she followed the sound and saw that the deck in front of the entrance to the fortress was filled with unconscious combatants. Oh, God, it turns out that the line just now is Leon's extremely fast figure. In the blink of an eye, he actually knocked down dozens of people and threw them all in front of her. Is this Superman? It's simply incredible. Natasha couldn't hide her shock, but she still acted quickly. Since the battle does not require her participation at all, then what she has to do is actually very simple. Just put inhibitors on all the widows you know and don't know. As for the other soldiers, she shot them all in the forehead. Natasha knew it. In the deformed intelligence agency called the Red Room, there are only two types of people, the controller and the controlled. These people who are not widows do not need to be screened. They all stand in a dominant position to bully and maintain stability. None of them are good people. After Natasha injected all the widows with inhibitors, she rushed into the fortress in the direction of Leon. Leon's hand was not gentle. The widows were expected to be comatose for a long time. She could not wait here. To Natasha, the interior of the Red House fortress was completely different from the spectacular exterior scene. She felt as if she was at home inside, and she was extremely familiar with every place. The only difference was probably that along the way, people she met at the doorways of rooms and on the passage decks were unconscious on the ground. These people had calm expressions, no scars on their bodies, and they seemed to have fallen into a peaceful sleep when they fell to the ground. Natasha could completely imagine how Leon felt like he was in a deserted place when he broke into this fortress. Without any hesitation, she used her left hand to hit the target and her right hand to hit the inhibitor, and quickly chased towards the command room. But too many people were knocked unconscious. Even though she moved quickly, it took almost 10 minutes to finish the injection and rushed to the central command room. Before she opened the door, she heard a familiar voice inside. "I apologize to you, noble Superman, please forgive me for overstepping my bounds. I swear that I never knew about your relationship with Mr. Tony Stark." It was Dreykov's voice. "Forget it about begging for mercy. I listened to you talk for a few minutes about how widows control the world and create peace. But now you are telling me this," Leon said. "Well, what do you want me to say? I can say it. Why don't we talk about Gorbachev's embarrassing things? Okay, what do you want to say? I'll send you to tell God. You already know about my relationship with Tony, and you still think you can leave alive." There was silence in the room for a while. The voice that started out suddenly broke out into a sharp laugh. Quote. He, Superman, you have been fooled. Why do you think I keep stalling? The pheromones emitted from my body will control the people around me, making them unable to attack me. Now that you have inhaled a large amount of pheromones, you can try attacking me again. When Natasha pushed the door open, what he saw was his old boss, General Dreykov, with neatly combed hair, black-rimmed glasses, and a squat body in a suit lying on the table. Facing Leon, who was standing on the other side of the table, his eyes widened and his mouth squinted, screaming in mockery. "I came at the wrong time, doesn't it seem?" She pointed to the door to the two people who were looking at her at the same time. "Natasha, you're the one who brought Superman. You fool!" Snapped. When Dreykov saw Natasha, he became furious and cursed. But just in the middle of his words, he was slapped on the back of the head by Leon, and his whole head hit the table, and his brains spurted out. This guy talks so much that it's really unbearable, but he also looks like a beast in clothes, which makes people want to slap him. Leon reached out and wiped the splattered blood on Dreykov's clothes. He tilted his head towards Natasha. "You don't mind if I kill him, do you?" Natasha shrugged nonchalantly. "I've wanted to do that a long time ago." "But how did you do it?" "It's the pheromones he just mentioned." She walked towards Leon. "That kind of pheromone can make people unable to attack him. We have all experienced it. Why are you not affected?" Leon grabbed Dreykov by the collar and threw him to the ground. His eyes shot out heat rays, instantly burning the mastermind behind the scenes to ashes. "The abnormal pheromone can't exist in my body for even a second, so how can it affect me?" Leon patted the non-existent dust on his hands. "This guy will have his own whims. Unless it is mental or magical control. Otherwise, do you want to control the Kryptonians who have been basking in the sun for more than half a year? This level is still far from enough." Natasha looked at her former boss who was turning into ashes on the ground, and opened her mouth slightly. "Heat ray, another magical new ability. I'm almost used to being shocked by the new things you show. Treasure boy, how are you going to scare me next time?" She laughed silently. "But before that, you can tell me how you want me to repay you. I will agree to any conditions." "Natasha, do you know that your current tone is like a 30-year-old working woman who goes to the bar after get off work at night to find a handsome male model to relieve her fatigue? There is a huge screen in the room. On the desk opposite the screen, there is a control panel embedded in it. Leon walked to the table and tried to operate on the panel. If you want to repay me, let the widows come and work for me first. But the first step is to lift the control that widows around the world are experiencing. I'm happy to oblige. Natasha came to Leon's side and watched his movements. Then let me go first to see how the widows in the aircraft carrier are doing. I'll leave it to you to crack the system and find lists of widows from all over the world, okay? It's very simple. After Leon finished speaking, a red interface suddenly popped up on the screen, prompting that palm print recognition was required to unlock. Palm print recognition. Leon tried several times but couldn't crack it. Quote. It seemed like I was a little impulsive just now. Drakov should wait until he dies. He turned to take out his mobile phone, but I still have Jarvis, he can handle this system. Leon connected the mobile phone and the control panel with a data cable, and soon Jarvis's voice appeared on the loudspeaker in the room. Master Leon, Mr. Stark asked me to ask you if you will go home tonight. Jarvis's first sentence was explosive. A black line drooped on Leon's face. If you don't reply, tell him not to mess around while I'm not at home, or I'll ask Pepper to urge him to go to work tomorrow. Okay, I'll pass your words on to Mr. Stark. Jarvis's voice paused and then said, he asked me to tell you the same thing. If you don't come home at night, remember to take safety measures and be careful not to be deceived by bad people. Leon slapped himself in the face. Let him take care of himself first. He is a childish old man who still thinks that I am a child all day long. Please, I was more mature than him when I was 3 years old. PFF'd, cough. Natasha on the side couldn't help laughing. Leon cast a death gaze, and Natasha tucked her red hair behind her ears and averted her eyes. Next time I introduce that childish Tony to you, you will definitely find him very boring. Leon curled his lips. He turned around and prepared for Jarvis to start cracking the Red Room system. But Natasha suddenly poked the side of his face with her fingertips, and then he was gone. Looking after him, Natasha turned her back to him and retreated to the door, waving her hand. To be honest, I just need to know a naive Stark. After Natasha finished speaking, she ran and disappeared around the corner outside the door. Leon was stunned for a moment. Another childish ghost. At this time, Jarvis, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly said, "Congratulations, Master Leon." "Congratulations to me." Leon was puzzled. "Congratulations on finding your 4th girlfriend." Jarvis said, "Your first 3 girlfriends only dated for half a month before they broke up with you because they got checks written by Mr. Stark. I hope you have a lasting relationship this time." Leon's memories were brought back. He closed his eyes in anger. "That's not because Tony always thinks that I will be deceived for love and money, and he says that emotions should stay in the body. Every time I just got a girlfriend and the girls spent a few nights with me, he would wave the check. Fark, he is killing my youth. But it turns out that those girls are really here for your money." Jarvis supported Tony this time. Mr. Stark just did what Miss Pepper would normally do for him. Leon curled his lips. "Every time it's a check of $1 million, whoever comes in exchange for it will score. So are you going to stop Mr. Stark from paying your breakup costs this time?" "No, because Natasha and I can never be together." Leon glanced at the corner, where Natasha was still hiding and eavesdropping. "But your relationship seems to be going well." Jarvis's code couldn't understand complex emotions. Leon shook his head. "This is different," he explained. "I knew from the beginning that all Natasha needed was someone to belong to. She has lived in a tragic environment since she was a child. Her adoptive parents are undercover agents acting as husband and wife. The so-called family relationship is just a castle in the air. And when the disguised family was broken up, she was sent to the Red House for training and transformation. The painful training and tortuous career as a killer left her with no sense of identity. She is like a duckweed floating in the sea with no fixed place. What this duckweed lacks most is a tidal flat for her to stop and take root. It's better to have other duckweed on the beach. Everyone may be swaying, but it's still lively. The tidal flat is actually a place of belonging. It is not a person, but a family with brothers and sisters. So Natasha doesn't need a lover, she needs a place that can give her a sense of belonging. We won't be together. Leon, who knew all of Natasha's past and future, knew it very well. Of course Natasha will have people she likes and good friends. But she will keep an appropriate distance from everyone. That feeling of alienation was her disguise to protect herself. It is also what she relies on to maintain relationships. Boom. Suddenly there was the sound of an object falling to the ground outside the house, followed by the sound of messy footsteps getting further away. Apparently Natasha had her thoughts revealed and left in a panic. Master Leone, Miss Natasha was still outside just now. Jarvis reminded. I know. Leon nodded. You know her very well. Do you like her but don't dare to get close to her? My Jarvis, only Tony would do the kind of thing you said. I only admire Natasha. So you don't plan to be with her? My relationship with her can be simpler. For example, we can talk about our concerns together in the dead of night. According to Mr. Stark's behavioral logic analysis, all the thoughts you talk about at night will turn into a noise-making exercise. That's the logic. Let's stop chatting, Jarvis, now invade this host and unlock the system blockade. Leon ordered. Okay, Master Leone. Jarvis's program successfully invaded the Red Room host. The red password box on the big screen was suddenly covered by a waterfall of blue codes. Characters of 0 and 1 jump rapidly on the screen. In the host of the Red Room, Jarvis can play an unprecedentedly powerful role. It even expressed emotion. Master Leone, here I feel as free as in the sea. The performance of their host system is very superior. Then you can enjoy it more in the future. I plan to give this fortress to Tony, and you can stay here permanently. Leon stared at the screen, waiting for the results of Jarvis's operation. More than 10 minutes later. Suddenly, a light flashed on the screen, and the system's blockade was successfully lifted. Folders pop up one by one, from low-security files to high-privilege confidential documents, arranged in order of confidentiality level. Leon showed a satisfied smile. Jarvis, search the key data in this system and retrieve information about all Red House Widow agents. Leon issued a new order. Jarvis responded quickly and began scanning and analyzing large amounts of data in the system. After a while, it made a beep. Master Leone, we have found all the corresponding information for you. Jarvis reported. A file opened on the big screen. The densely packed profile photos suddenly filled the screen, and they were still sliding down to show more portraits. There are at least 300 widows, whose locations are marked on the world map. The screen flashed, and a world map popped up, with avatars marked around the world. From London and Paris in Northern Europe to Cape Town and Johannesburg in South Africa. From Jerusalem, the Holy Land of Faith, to Free and Open, Chicago and New York. More than 300 widow agents are scattered in various nodes around the world. Some have high positions, some are good at dancing, and some are hidden among vendors as hidden sharp knives. By controlling these widow agents, the Red House controls the world. Jarvis, send Natasha a copy of the list and details, then transfer $100 million from my name to her and ask her to establish a new organizational center in New York. Leon's eyes became focused. Master Leone, you may be able to inform Miss Natasha directly about the relevant arrangements. They are coming to find you. Jarvis said. Natasha came here with the widows. Leon looked towards the door, his ears twitched slightly, and he heard a burst of footsteps. It was a silent step that used special techniques to exert force, and the widows had turned this technique into a habit. Wow, what did I hear just now? A man wants to spend $100 million on you. Natasha, how did you do it? Did you take off your clothes? Please teach me how to get people to give me so much money. We will need money very much in the future, right? The first person to enter was Natasha, followed by a girl who kept talking to her in Russian. The girl would never have imagined that not only did Leon know Russian, but he could also hear her whisper in a low voice. Natasha rolled her eyes, ignored the girl behind her, and walked straight to Leon. Behind her were more than 40 widow agents. Under their golden, black, and red hair, their blue, dark, and even Roland purple eyes were all looking at Leon in uniform. They still had confused and sad expressions on their faces, but their eyes overflowed with gratitude and admiration for Leon. It can be seen that Natasha should have told them the general situation. I brought everyone here. Natasha turned sideways to give up her position. Her expression is normal, as if she had not heard Leon's analysis of her before. They are all willing to join your organization or company and serve you. Leon took a few more glances at Natasha and the girl behind her. I can see that you encountered a lot of difficulties in the process of persuasion. Natasha sighed. This is my sister, Yelena. She pulled the girl behind her. She attacked me when she woke up. She is just an impulsive child. Both Natasha and Yelena's faces were stained. One had a bruised forehead, and the other had a torn corner of the mouth. That's not an impulse, it's a punishment for you, a traitor. It was your defection that caused us to be subject to stricter control. Yelena has short blonde hair, looks neat and tidy, and has a childish face. She seems to be younger than Leon. She first refuted Natasha's slander, and then stood up to Leon. Thank you for saving us, Mr. Superman, we are willing to obey your orders. Leon smiled when he heard this, and was about to say a few words to win people's hearts. As a result, Yelena immediately turned sideways quietly and said to Natasha in Russian, "Oh my God, his chest muscles are so beautiful, they feel bigger than mine. Have you ever touched them? It's really hard for such a handsome man to be seduced by you." Wasted. Natasha and Leon's faces both darkened. Don't wait for Natasha to clean up her rebellious little sister. Leon took the first step and gave a recruitment introduction in Russian to all the widow agents present. Everyone, I won't introduce myself much. Superman and Stark, you must be familiar with these two identities. First of all, I want to explain that although I helped Natasha destroy the Red House, part of my purpose was to gain your power. But this is not a mandatory requirement. After all, you have suffered enough. If you don't want to join, you can leave later, whether you want to return to an ordinary life or use your skills to work hard. And those who are willing to join, stay. I will let Natasha set up a company or organization in New York, and then you can all use your talents. That's all I have to say. Those who don't want to join can leave after helping to clean up the corpses on the fortress. I will ask Natasha to escort you. By the way, I will also ask Jarvis to send you your family of origin information. Leon waved to the big screen. Jarvis. Okay, Master, all messages have been sent. Jarvis was very efficient, and the communication equipment of all widow agents on the scene received the message. The widow agents looked at each other, but did not immediately check their background. For these girls who were sent to red houses since childhood, family is a very distant topic. This supposedly warm word was so unfamiliar to their ears, not much different from the bakery they encountered by chance on the roadside. It can even be said that they are extremely unfamiliar and fearful of a future in which they can make their own decisions. In more than 10 years of working in the Red House, they have never really made a choice on their own. Because every detail of their lives has been completely planned by the Red House, even the way of death. But now, facing the two choices provided by Leon, they were flattered and at the same time, they were also faintly excited in their hearts. The girls did not communicate. After a brief silence, they all stepped forward and gathered around Leon. We are willing to obey your orders, Your Excellency. The jagged words neatly express the same idea. Leon's tall figure stood out like stars in the black uniforms. He looked around, his eyes passing by a tense little face, smiling. Then you are welcome to join. He opened his hand. In the future, we will definitely accomplish many great deeds that will be admired by the world. You will never regret today's decision. Now, your first task is to clean up the Sky Fortress and dispose of all the corpses. After that, I will let Natasha go with you all over the world to relieve the control of other widow agents. He held out his hand, and all the widows laid their hands on it, each girl's eyes shining. The girls left one after another, and Leon turned back to look at Natasha and her sister who was planning to take the opportunity to slip away. From the moment Leon spoke the first Russian sentence, Yelena's face became embarrassed. She thought Superman could only speak English, and seemed to know at least some Chinese. She didn't expect that Superman could even speak Russian. I thought that after waking up, I would usher in a new life. Unexpectedly, he ushered in his first social death. Yelena just wanted to roll on the ground and disappear here. But when she tried to muddle through, she was stopped by Leon. Natasha, Yelena, you stay here first. Natasha stopped without any doubt. Yelena was stiff all over, pointing to herself with a smile. Do I want to stay too? I think so. Leon nodded with a smile. He puffed out his chest deliberately. You've been discussing my muscles just now, so I thought I should give you a chance. Ah, Yelena took a step back unprepared, and after hesitation she actually stretched out her right hand. So, I can touch and see. Natasha's face darkened, and she slapped Yelena on the back of the head. What were you thinking about when you woke up? Yelena held her head and felt aggrieved. The boss said he could give me a chance. She took the position of Leon's younger brother very naturally. Leon shook his head speechlessly. How could a girl of Yelena's age have so many incredible ideas? He said to the screen, Jarvis, you send the information about the widow agents scattered around the world to the two of them. Okay. Natasha walked behind Leon, looked at the portraits marked around the world on the screen, and vaguely realized why Leon stopped them. So you want the two of us to lead the other widows? Natasha asked. That's right. Leon nodded. Yelena, as the two Black Widows, you two are the most suitable to be their leaders. Ah, Black Widow, but I'm not. Yelena rubbed the back of her head in confusion. You're not. Leon was stunned for a moment. In the original world line, Yelena surpassed all the records left by Natasha and became a new generation of Black Widow. Unexpectedly, she is not yet. Natasha pursed her lips and smiled. She was almost successful, but those records were refreshed by me a year ago. Leon suddenly realized that this was an extension of the butterfly effect. Thank you very much. No wonder my training volume was doubled at that time. Do you know that it almost killed me? Yelena tugged at her hair frantically. As she spoke, she rushed forward and tried to hug Natasha, but was quickly suppressed. Leon, don't pay attention to her. Tell me, what do you want us to do? Natasha pressed on Yelena and said. After the things here are over, you will lead others to rescue the widows marked on the map. After injecting the inhibitor, give them the same choice. Bring those who are willing to join to see me, and those who are unwilling to join will have their files destroyed. Okay, I will complete the task as soon as possible. Natasha nodded solemnly, with gratitude in her eyes. Her biggest wish before was to allow other widow agents to have their own lives. And now, because of Leon, this wish is about to come true. Natasha felt that she owed this man more and more, and she almost couldn't pay it back. Leon put his hands on the table, but this is just preliminary preparation work. After you complete it, I will have more important tasks for you. Boss, what is the mission? Do we want to save the world? Or do we want to fight against the evil dark forces? Even though Yelena was suppressed under Natasha, she still shouted excitedly. Shut up. Natasha twisted her sister's arm hard, and Yelena was defeated with a cry. Boss, save me, boss, Natasha is bullying me because of her age. She began to cry. Leon's eyelids twitched. Why didn't he remember that Yelena was so out of the ordinary in the movie? How old is she? He couldn't help asking Natasha. This must not be the use of child labor. Born in 1988, she is 20 years old. Natasha remembers her sister's birthday very clearly. Bigger than me. Leon was dumbfounded and ignored Yelena. This girl must have been trapped in a cage for a long time, and her mind became active after she was suddenly freed. Just ignore her. Boss, don't turn around, look at me, Natasha is 4 years older than me, ah. Yelena was sanctioned by Natasha again. With tears in her eyes, she pitifully tried to impress her boss with her eyes. However, Leon only left her with a ruthless back. Natasha shook her head helplessly and asked, can't you tell us about that mission in advance? There is nothing to keep secret. The task is actually very simple. Just let the widow agents around the world spread some evidence through their own channels. Leon's face was reflected blue by the dim light of the screen. Some evidence that an evil organization that should have perished in history still exists and has taken root in the world. What organization? Natasha's pupils dilated. Hydra. Leon spat out a few words. Hydra, that organization that was eliminated by Captain America still exists. Oh my God, do we really want to save the world? So powerful. Yelena spoke up again. Natasha also stared at Leon, waiting for him to tell more details. A smile appeared on Leon's face. Have you ever heard of an organization called S.H.I.E.L.D.? Next few minutes, Leon introduced the resurrection process of Hydra to the two in detail. So the hearts of the two sisters felt extremely shocked in just a few minutes. They thought that the Red Room was already the most hidden and darkest organization in the world. Unexpectedly, one mountain is higher than the other. Hydra can actually take over S.H.I.E.L.D. This S.H.I.E.L.D. is the biggest cancer in the world. Natasha, who was supposed to be working for S.H.I.E.L.D. at this time, said this. Yes, you're right. Leon could hardly suppress the smile on his face. Looking at Natasha as Nick Fury's henchman in the movie. Now he looks like he deserves to be guillotined. There was a subtle feeling of pleasure in his heart. Ahem, he's still wearing a Superman uniform. He shouldn't have such thoughts. It's a sin. He has to wait until he gets home and takes off his suit before laughing. Soon Natasha escorted Yelena out of the command room. The expressions of the two sisters were completely different. Natasha's face was solemn, but her fighting spirit was high. She thinks that her hands are stained with blood, and what she wants to do most is to save the world and make up for her own sins. Even if she sacrifices herself for it, she feels willing to do so. In other words, after experiencing so many things, she had a self-destructive tendency, but she just wanted to do more to make up for her mistakes before she died. But Yelena was different. She was so excited that she almost jumped up. He was still chirping all the way out, saying that he was going to be a great hero. But no matter how the two reacted, they all felt more and more in their hearts that the organization that Leon was about to establish would be a great organization dedicated to the darkness and serving the light. However, if Leon could hear their inner thoughts, he would definitely not be able to help but slap the table and laugh out loud. After all, his original intention in establishing the organization was just to make the Widow agents work for him better. Master Leon, maybe this Miss Natasha is really good. She doesn't seem to give in to money, and she also has a righteous heart. After everyone was gone, Jarvis spoke up again. Leon said perfunctorily, yes, he is good as a subordinate. He is loyal, indifferent to fame and fortune, and not afraid of sacrifice. Where can I find such a good subordinate? Master, your thinking angle is really surprising. It is always beyond my calculations. That's necessary. Leon swiped a few times on the electronic screen. By the way, you can search in the Red Room host to see if there are any documents related to Hydra. Please wait. There are 8 undercover documents and 316 transaction documents, all related to Hydra. Jarvis unfolded the folder on the big screen. It added, however, the Red House did not know that the targets of these undercover agents and transactions were Hydra. The above results were retrieved based on the Hydra information you uploaded before. Leon crossed his arms and said, 8 undercover agents. This Red House also has great magical powers. Even Hydra can enter undercover. The content of the document shows that there was also a Widow agent who was recommended to join S.H.I.E.L.D. after going undercover into a scientific research institution controlled by Hydra, Jarvis said. In terms of identity, this Widow agent is also a Hydra, although she does not know it. There is actually a double agent. Why do I suddenly feel that Dreykov is also a genius? Leon clapped his hands. He thought for a while. Let Natasha find a way to contact this Widow first and inject her with an inhibitor. Then package all Hydra-related files and send them back to Tony's host. Also, remember to keep the parts of the file related to the Red House. You can use them later to make a fuss. Okay, Master Leon, Jarvis responded. A file transfer screen immediately appeared on the big screen. The file package has been transferred back to Mr. Stark's host. Well done. Leon patted the table with satisfaction, like patting Jarvis on the shoulder. He moved his shoulders and said, this is the end of tonight's work, and the next step is happy sunbathing time. And you, Jarvis, you are also off work. From now on, you can run whatever you want on the host of this fortress. Thank you, Master Leon. Jarvis said, but I want to remind you that there are still 4 hours until the next sun exposure time in your plan. In order to predict the upper limit of strength increase, Leon has a fixed time to bask in the sun every time this month. If he wants to bask in the sunshine as he pleases, he still has to wait for more than half a month. Okay, I forgot. Leon touched his chin, then I'll help the girls clean up the bodies. He floated up, flew out of the command room, found the busy Widow agents, and helped them move the bodies together. This makes work that should have been busy for several hours come to an end in less than 10 minutes. So Leon simply called everyone and held a party together in the office's mess on the lower level of the fortress. When the party started, there were only simple fast food on the table, and the protagonist was a large amount of whiskey and champagne that Leon moved from the wine cellar. The girls sat neatly at the dining table, each with a dinner plate and a wine glass in hand. At first they sat stiffly, at a loss, not even able to adapt to this kind of eating activity without any time limit. But soon, bottles after bottles of high-end champagne were sprayed into the goblet. Girls from all over the world are gradually letting loose. They communicated quietly at first. Then he gradually began to boldly ask Leon various questions. In the end, the girls cheered, clinked glasses, drank, and gathered around Leon to sing the nursery rhymes from their childhood. Various cheerful children's songs were sung in English, German, Chinese, and Portuguese. Nearly 100 arms of various colors took turns lingering on Leon, only to be pushed away by him helplessly. Halfway through the party, most of the girls were just getting excited. Their specially trained and even modified bodies are destined to be difficult to get drunk. But this does not affect their actions becoming bolder and their words becoming more explicit. Leon began to feel that what he was hosting was no longer a party, but a. So he wisely closed the door and left the office's mess, leaving behind a group of singing and dancing girls with rosy faces. I can't have dinner with so many girls next time. Leon casually grabbed a towel next to him and wiped the marks on his face. Especially a girl who can't stop drinking and only gets drunker and drunker. Suddenly a female voice added softly. Leon turned around in surprise. Natasha stood leaning against the wall, and it was she who handed over the towel. Why don't you continue to have a few drinks with them? Your sister has started to take off her coat and dance the go-pack dance. Leon joked. At this time, Natasha reached out and took the towel again, took a step forward, and wiped away the marks on Leon's neck and behind his ears. If I were inside, wouldn't I be able to wait for you? Her beautiful amber eyes winked mischievously. Leon looked at the beautiful face so close. It seems that I have just come out of the tiger's den and entered the wolf's den again. Have to admit, as long as you don't use supervision to observe, Natasha is a top beauty. What do you think? Natasha stood on tiptoes and hooked Leon's neck. She breathed moist breath into Leon's ear. I don't stink now, bad guy. That's hard to say. Leon lowered his voice. Maybe you have to let me smell it carefully to know. Natasha turned her head and pressed her cheek against Leon's, sniffing lightly with the tip of his nose. But I think you smell particularly good. Do you want to go to my room tonight to see why you smell so strange? Are you serious? Natasha's fingertips slid down from the S-shaped logo on Leon's chest. It depends on whether you are willing to be the title flat that makes me stop and take root. Extremely happy. The two figures overlapped, slowly moved into the elevator, returned to Natasha's room, and slammed the door. Beep, beep. Jarvis gave an emergency reminder, and the sound kept ringing. What's wrong? Leon half opened his sleepy eyes, stretched out his hand to fumble, and followed the sound to find his mobile phone in the Superman uniform on the ground. Ding! The phone screen lit up, and the wavy curve representing Jarvis appeared on the screen. Master Leon, I'm sorry to disturb your rest, but maybe Mr. Stark needs your help. Tony, hearing that something happened to his brother, Leon suddenly woke up and sat up. What's up with him? Mr. Stark was on the highest deck of the fortress and was stopped by the agents. There is an emergency. Deck, agent, why is he here? Leon felt confused. Let him calm down and don't conflict with the widows. We are all our own. I will go find him right away. Leon pulled down the white arm that was hanging on his body and slapped the bulge in the quilt beside him. I'm still pretending to be asleep when I wake up. I'm going to check on Tony. Follow me quickly. Natasha opened her eyes, but her eyes were not as sharp as before. Instead, they were like a deep green pool in summer, with water so rich that it seemed like it was about to flow out. Then when is our next time? She sat up holding the quilt, her hair hanging down her shoulders was messy, revealing half of her white and rosy collarbone. Leon quickly put on his uniform. When you want to come to me? What do you think our relationship is now? He also asked. Natasha showed a charming smile. You know me so well, you should know. My only and most special friend. You are very greedy, but I agreed. Natasha hugged her knees across the quilt. Who makes you my boss, but you can't deduct my salary in the future. Are you worried about your salary? You couldn't take it with both hands when I gave it to you last night, right? Leon raised his eyebrows. After hearing this, Natasha covered her head with the quilt and said no more. But after Leon left, she got out of the quilt again. In an empty room, her eyes flickered as she stretched out her hand to make a virtual grip, raised her eyebrows with unclear meaning, and silently uttered a, "Wow." From her lips. The nights over the Arctic Ocean are short in summer. It had only been more than 3 hours since the party, but the sea of clouds hiding in the fortress was already illuminated by the sun. When Leon turned on his supervision, he flew in the sunlight coming in through the windows. He expected to see Tony's two-handed cluster cannon on the deck, confronting a group of gun-wielding widow agents. The result was a shocking scene. "What's going on?" Leon muttered, speeding up. On deck, Tony was blocked by 7 or 8 widow agents. About 30 other girls were looking at Tony and whispering from a few meters away. Their faces even smelled of alcohol, and from time to time they stretched out their hands to make signs, as if they were comparing something. But the strangest thing was Tony. He was wearing Mark III armor and was neither flying in the air nor using any weapon systems. Instead, cross your hands in front of your lower abdomen, take 1 step to the right with your left leg, and 1 step to the left with your right leg. That action was even more enchanting than the models on Victoria's Secret that Leon had seen 2 years ago. Tony isn't in danger, so why is it an emergency? Leon looked strange. And what is he doing? Catwalking? No, that's stupid. Tony was still there arguing with the widow agents. His faceplate popped open, his expression inexplicably embarrassed. "I told you that your new boss and I are brothers, do you understand? I'm his brother. If you don't let me in, I will transfer you to the company to work as Pepper's secretary." The girl who was talking to him had a very relaxed posture, with the gun on her waist and her hands behind her back. She looked a little troubled. "Mr. Stark, I can't let you in without Superman's permission. Since you have asked the artificial intelligence to notify him, there will be a reply soon. Just wait. But what you just said, if Superman agrees, I am willing to work for the Stark Group." She even started chatting. "Your group's salary is very high. I haven't received a salary yet. I heard that the coastal scenery in Los Angeles is also good." "Are you serious? Now talk to me about salary, huh?" Tony stared. "Nicole Parson, if you let me in, I will give you a monthly salary of $100,000. Sorry, no, and my name is not Nicole Parson, my name is Mary. That's the name of a female agent in The Bourne Supremacy. Tony gave you a nickname, Mary." Leon, who was observing the situation from the side, finally appeared. He landed and patted the widow agent on the shoulder. "Well done, I didn't treat you to a drink for free just now. Now let our Uncle Tony come in." After hearing this, Mary and the widows finally got out of the way, with smiles on their faces. Then you can't run away in the middle of the next party. Drinking and talking at the party. Let the girls get acquainted with Leon. Their behavior was much more casual, but there was no less respect in their eyes, but more trust. "Next time I will get you all drunk before leaving." Leon smiled, turned his head and opened his arms towards Tony. "Tony, how did you find this place? Look at your face, it looks like. Please, why are you coming out just now? Get out of the way, I want to go in." Tony pushed Leon away. His face turned red, as if he had been holding his breath in the water for 3 minutes. "Jarvis, show me the way," and then turn the armor's propulsion power to the maximum. All the propellers of the Mark III sprayed fire at the same time, and the shells were fired into the interior of the fortress. Natasha, who had just come out, almost ran into her head-on. She jumped aside and cursed fake. Leon froze on the spot before finishing the second half of the sentence, like a drowned frog. The girls looked at each other when they heard this metaphor and expressed their agreement. "That's your brother Tony Stark. What happened to him?" Natasha patted the dust on her hands and walked over. Leon shrugged. "I don't know, Jarvis, what happened to him? Oops, did he go into the toilet?" I turned on my clairvoyance and took a casual glance. He saw Tony taking off his armor in the toilet, and after some fiddling, he breathed a sigh of relief. Leon's expression became strange. "Jarvis, how long has Tony been on the road?" "For 3 hours, Mr. Stark has been very busy today and has not had time to solve his physical problems," Jarvis said. Ha ha. Leon laughed out loud. Turns out he couldn't hold it in any longer. I asked him why his feet kept twisting around. The girls present were also stunned. No wonder Tony Stark was so strange just now. There was laughter on the deck for a while, and everyone had a deep understanding of the Stark brothers. I'm going to see what Tony wants to do, you guys keep busy. Leon flew up and returned to the inside of the fortress. Tony, do you still think the fluid circulation system is disgusting? The first time Tony walked out of the toilet, he saw Leon leaning against the wall and questioning him. Quote. Tony's expression suddenly froze. After freezing for a few seconds, he turned his head as if nothing had happened. Sometimes I have to admit that the important thing is the function rather than the appearance. So you're not sick now? Leon put his index finger between his eyebrows. I remember, someone seemed to say a few days ago. Okay, I admit that you are more foresighted. The armor does need a liquid circulation system. Tony's expression changed and he quickly changed his words. He grabbed Leon and stopped the topic. I'll install additional functions when I get back. Now why don't you take me around your fairy tale castle first? Get Tony's submission. Leon reaps the full emotional value. He stopped when he was ready, and followed Tony and said, okay, let's go this way first. By the way, why did you find me here? Jarvis told me that a girl kidnapped my brother while I was away. I was worried that he would be deceived into nowhere, so I came here overnight to protect him. Tony spread his hands. Are you moved after hearing this story? However, this younger brother actually acted aggressively when I made a fool of myself. Isn't it too much? Leon couldn't help laughing. Obviously you were shot in the knee by your own boomerang. Who said you don't need a fluid circulation system to kill you? Also, you can deceive Pepper with your nonsense. Why did you come here? Tony shrugged. Jarvis said that a little princess built a huge fairy tale castle and gave it to me. I came here to see how it goes. Jarvis told you. Well, I didn't ask for it to be kept secret. Leon stepped forward to lead the way. Come this way, I'll show you the functions of this fortress. Also, this is your 40th birthday gift. It's still early. The two walked from the command room on the upper level of the fortress to the engine at the bottom. Tony was analyzing the whole thing. Full body stealth coating, radar absorbing materials, and optical stealth. They are really rich and worthy of being a legacy of a superpower. Look here, the power system of this fighter is very good, but it is still 20 years behind my armor. What is that? An anti-gravity device made of propellers. Did I suddenly return to the age of discovery? Why does a space carrier use propellers? We need to remodel this fort. Tony was completely in the state. His eyes were moving rapidly, and he pointed at one module after another and expressed his ideas for transformation. Replace the energy system with an arc generator, change the anti-gravity propulsion device to cluster energy, and strengthen the stealth system. Also on the deck, I can build armor storage warehouses, so that real-time delivery of armor can be achieved. Wait, Tony, wait a minute. Seeing that Tony was taking the lead, Leon hurriedly interrupted. What? Do you have any other suggestions for improvement? Tony now attaches great importance to Leon's scientific research talents. No, I want to say that you seem to have made a mistake. What's up? This fortress is not yours yet. What? Jarvis clearly said you gave it to me. I said it was a 40th birthday present. Are you 40 now? You are still a few months away from 39. Tony was shocked. 40 years old. Are you going to leave this fortress idle for more than a year? Of course not, I am still useful. The widow agents still need to use this fortress, and... So you're going to give me a third-hand birthday present? Tony became eloquent and said, Leon, what makes you so cruel that you are not even willing to give a second-hand gift to my brother? Has he treated you poorly for so many years? It can be seen that he really likes this flying fortress. While visiting though, he kept nagging about finding faults. He also said that he could only reluctantly accept this gift. But his eyes were always shining. It's like a little boy getting his long-awaited Transformers. Of course I'm not. That's it. Tony interrupted again. We will have half of this fortress before our 40th birthday, and then you will give me a gift of 2.5 cents. Leon hesitated. But, Leon, you can't transform the entire fortress by yourself, right? Tony said again. Those big eyes almost stared into Leon's face. Quote. Leon was stunned by Tony's longing eyes. He raised his hands in surrender. Okay, half for you and half for me for the time being. Normally, I would have the widows stationed here for task handover and personnel transfer. As long as you don't affect them, you can do whatever you want. Tony beamed with joy. Of course, I will never affect those girls' work. But why do you always call them widows? Does the Red House specifically look for widows to train? Leon shook his head. They were selected by the gene sequencing project since they were children and then sent here. He briefly introduced the past of the Red House. Tony's face turned dull after hearing this. Training and transforming little girls. First Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D., then the Red Room. Under the calm waters of this world, I don't know how many such evil organizations are hiding in the dark. Take me to meet the girls. Also, since you plan to establish a new organization, maybe you should change their names. You can't let a bunch of girls around you calling themselves widows all day long, right? That would make you look like a heinous medieval lord. Tony has always had a warm heart. Leon nodded. They will naturally have new names in the future. When the two returned to the deck, the girls are still here, basking in the sun, looking at the sea of clouds, and chatting. The content of the chat had no preface and follow-up, and they were chatting about anything they could think of. For them who had just gained freedom, just sitting like this, even if it lasted all day, was extremely comfortable. After seeing Leon, the girls all stood up and gathered around Leon. After introduction and communication, Tony talked about his plan to renovate the fortress and take the initiative. To the widow agent responsible for guarding the fort, he will pay a monthly salary of $100,000 until the other party leaves. However, during the exchange, Tony found that the girls looked at him very strangely. After questioning him several times in Lyon, he learned that it was because everyone in the fortress knew that he was holding back his urine in his armor. Therefore, Leon and Tony quickly said goodbye to the girls and left the Sky Fortress together. Tony left partly out of embarrassment, partly because he still has to go back and prepare for today's press conference. If he misses the press conference, Pepper will definitely be angry for a while. It's time for Leon to bask in the sun. He wants to fly directly back to the space capsule to sleep. By the way, he rebuilt the spaceship's hatch last week and repaired it. When I first woke up, my heart was racing, and I just wanted to destroy something to test my strength. As a result, the hatch suffered an unexpected disaster. In the end, of course he had to fix it himself. On the deck of the fortress, the widows looked at the two people flying away with envy. It's great, I can fly freely. Yelena said, I don't know if I will have the opportunity to ask the boss to build me a battle armor in the future. That would be really cool if you think about it. Flames spurt out from the soles of your feet, whoosh. Then they fly away. Natasha said nothing and kept watching Leon disappear into the clouds. Yelena noticed her sister's abnormality and bumped her with her shoulder. Hey, stop looking. Everyone has left. You and the boss were alone in the past few hours. You haven't seen enough. You don't have to worry about it. Natasha pushed her sister away. I don't care. Yelena approached again dissatisfied. She suddenly thought of something. Yes, you should have just. How do you feel? The other girls also became interested when they heard this topic, and they all joined in. Yeah, Superman is so strong, how do you feel? Let's talk about it. Is it as strong as a hydraulic press for piling? Or is it as fast as an electric drill? We can't even eat it. If you don't tell us, you will envy us to death. The widows turned into curious babies one by one, and they just had to write the word curiosity into their eyes. Natasha's expression became coy, and she stretched out her hand to hold it in the air. That's right, it feels a bit like flying in the sky, and it never stopped, and it's very strong. Ah, shit, Natasha, you deserve to die. My Superman, I really heard what I wanted to hear. The curious babies had a mental breakdown. The scene was filled with howls of ghosts and wolves. 10 o'clock in the morning in Los Angeles. Stark Industrial Park. The press conference was held on time. Pepper read a long speech on stage. That is a plan for the rollout of new energy supply. But this is just a preliminary explanation. Real cooperation must be carried out in conjunction with major sovereign countries. The reporters in the audience kept flashing lights, and everyone was quiet until Pepper finished speaking. They knew they were witnessing something big that was about to change the world. As long as they perform well enough, maybe they will be included in the textbooks in the future because of a wonderful report issued today. However, when Pepper finished speaking, the question and answer session that reporters had been longing for did not come. On the stage, Pepper stood aside to give up his position, but Tony Stark walked up. Ahem, don't worry, everyone, I'm just going to say a few words. He put his hands on the podium. The crowd fell silent after a brief commotion, and hundreds of pairs of eyes were waiting for Tony's next speech. Oh, it's finally about to start. Jarvis remembered the video. At the outermost edge of the crowd, Leon, who had returned from space, was holding a bucket of popcorn, looking like he was watching a good show. Although the time is wrong, it can still be regarded as watching a major Marvel event live. Mr. Leon, you seem to be looking forward to what Mr. Tony will say next. Suddenly a voice came from the side. Leon frowned slightly, glanced at the speaker, and stopped as he was about to walk away. Who are you? An acquaintance. Leon immediately recognized the middle-aged man next to him in a suit and leather shoes, with slightly bald forehead and a kind face. Isn't this Coulson, a die-hard Captain America fan? I'm Phil Coulson, from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. Coulson handed over a business card with a smile. What a convoluted name. What do you want from me? Leon took the business card. We are a department independent of the FBI and CIA. We would like to talk to you about some of the recent events in the Middle East. Leon glanced at the business card and stuffed it back into Coulson's hand. You don't need to ask me. What Tony is going to say now is what happened there. You just need to wait. Coulson looked at Tony on the stage unexpectedly, feeling that something big was going to happen today. Thank you. He nodded politely to Leon, then walked out, took out the communication device and started to contact his superiors. Well, recently, I believe you all should be paying attention to what is happening in the Middle East. Tony flipped through a few pages of his speech on the stage and threw it aside. There are some barbarians there who are killing civilians wantonly with weapons they don't know where they got. Of course, it was Obadiah who was secretly delivering weapons to them in the past. Now that he is gone, those people still have weapons. Just as Tony was about to continue speaking, a reporter raised his hand and asked, "Are you talking about the 10 Rings gang that kidnapped you and were then eliminated by Superman?" Well, it's almost the same, but the details are a little different. Tony choked. Sure enough, no matter what happens, these reporters can label Superman. Tony chose to abandon the large-scale foreshadowing and go directly to the key points. You must also know that most of the 10 Rings gang is in the Middle East. Actually, it was in Afghanistan. There was a man in steel armor who was there recently and wiped out this group of gangsters. Many people began to pay attention to him and thought he was a hero. I want to say that he has many shortcomings and made many mistakes when he was young, but you still think he is a hero. This is actually... Another reporter raised his hand. Are you talking about the Iron Man who recently imitated Superman? Do you know him very well? Tony's words were all stuck in his throat. He looked at the reporter for a long time. Then suddenly said, "That's Iron Man. Not Iron Boy. And, I am, Iron Man." Quote. There was silence. Everyone looked at Tony and felt that he was enlivening the atmosphere. There were even a few people who laughed dryly and joined in, showing that they were indeed amused. The only one in the crowd who was really smiling, even smiling happily, was Leon. This made Tony's face darken. He pursed his lips angrily, took a step back, shook his hands, and revealed 2 bracelets. Jarvis. Boom. The next moment, an oval metal flight capsule rushed in from outside and passed over the reporter's head. Amid exclamations and ducking, the flight capsule disintegrated and descended on Tony. I am Iron Man. The armor was put on, the face armor was closed, and the crisp sound of iron scales snapping together sounded continuously. Tony once again announced his identity calmly but firmly. This time everyone was looking at him in shock. The golden red armor stood in the center of the podium, like an industrial treasure, full of brilliance. Everyone was trembling in their hearts. Then, the crowd surged, hundreds of arms raised high, rushing to the podium, noisily raising their own questions. Evening. Honestly, you might as well just appear on stage wearing the armor, that way you won't be questioned by reporters one after another. Leon pushed open the door of the mansion and said to Tony behind him. After the press conference, Pepper was stunned and dragged him and Tony to sit in the company for a whole day. The pile of documents seems to be endless. The super brain seems to have made a sound of protest. Leon decided, wait until Natasha has rescued all the widow agents. Let her be the president of the internet company. This job is a bit tiring. But it seems that he trusts Natasha. Presumably being able to handle multiple transactions worth tens of billions of dollars every day will give Natasha a great sense of accomplishment. As for establishing the organization, leave it to Yelena. Little girls can grow up quickly if they exercise more. The more Leon thought about it, the more he felt that this decision was feasible, another win-win-win situation. It's impossible to get into this class anyway. He went to work before time traveling and went to work after time traveling. Didn't he travel through time in vain? But that's all for later. Now, he just wants to have a good dinner. Use delicious food to heal the fatigue of work. However, as soon as he walked through the door, Leon stopped. Tony's questioning voice chased behind him. Do you really think so? I saw it clearly at that time, and you laughed the loudest in the audience. Why are you standing still? Tony poked his head out from behind Leon. In front of the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, a figure with a black trench coat hanging down to his ankles, his back to the two of them, was looking aloofly at the sea outside the window. That pitch-black head pretends to be mysterious. Who else could it be if he wasn't Nick Fury? Jarvis, Tony called. Welcome home, Mr. Stark and Master Leon. Jarvis responded immediately. It looks like it's local electromagnetic shielding. The technology is pretty good. Tony praised, and he saw that part of Jarvis' monitoring area was shielded. He looked at Leon. What do you think we should do? Leon snapped his fingers. Jarvis, use the armor to blast out the man standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. Okay, Master. The sound of a mechanical combination immediately came from downstairs. Wait a minute, don't get excited. Nick Fury, who was dressed as aloof, panicked and turned around hurriedly. I'm the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick. Happy Crab. Before he finished speaking, Jarvis had already controlled Super Mark 1 to go upstairs. The blue-red armor raised his hands, and the cluster cannon was ready to go. I'll do it again. We need to talk. Nick Fury saw that the artificial intelligence had no intention of stopping, so he crashed through the floor-to-ceiling window and jumped off the cliff. Boom. After he jumped off the cliff, the cluster cannon also passed by. Well done, Tony praised, walked to the window, and watched a parachute slowly unfold under the cliff. That guy really has a lot of backup tactics, and it's no different from what you described. He sighed with emotion. Leon also came over. Jarvis, it seems we have to upgrade you, otherwise anyone can break in. Master, if I use the Sky Fortress's host, I shouldn't be blocked by him. Hey, you know how to make requests, so I'll upgrade your console. Tony looked at Leon at this time. Speaking of which, if your Black Widow men had been kicked out by you when they came yesterday, we wouldn't have been able to find the Red House. Why didn't you take action then? He asked. Because there are some things I want to be sure of. Leon blew on the floor-to-ceiling window, blowing all the debris off the cliff. I plan to ask her for some information I want to know. Naturally, I won't drive her away directly. What information? Secret. You kid and I still have such a secret. I think you are just greedy for other people's bodies. Tony's voice was high. Of course, there is also this factor in it. I just made the same mistakes that men make. Leon walked towards his room. You make sense. Tony put himself in his shoes and thought about it. He couldn't refuse a beautiful woman who came to his door. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.